Hello, the following video is a recording of our 13th Artist Feedback AMA session held within the MetaJungle Discord on March 17th. This session was hosted by Mike Schmidt and Dan Hawk, and they reviewed 13 different NFT collections. The honest feedback and critique of these collections provided useful information for whenever curating and creating your NFT collections. We want to thank Mike and Dan for hosting this session, as well as all the artists who submitted work to be reviewed, and everyone who was able to attend. We hope you find it useful, and with that, let's get into it.
Let's get rocking.
We could, get started here. So,
I wanted to, Mike. I wanted to start with something. If you want to, you want to share a screen?
yeah, I can share a screen, and if you want to start by saying something, that's perfectly fine.
I did want to, and I think this is just something I wanted to throw out there. First of all, we had 60 submissions in the new Google Doc submission tool, which was super cool. We had, I think I can speak for both of us and say we just saw a lot of amazing work. Unfortunately, we always have to narrow it down, right, to, like 12, and in this case, we actually added a 13th artist. But I wanted to just say something. I think this is maybe useful for anybody who's thinking about submitting and wants to be part of this. If you, sometimes when we go through, we're always aiming to pick projects that we think our feedback can help the most. Now, sometimes that means really great work that needs a little bit of curation. Sometimes it means maybe the work is, there's some feedback we can give on the work itself. And then I think a lot of times the reason we end up not choosing projects is because, one, they don't have adequate descriptions, licensing information, properties. None of that stuff is filled in on the project when we go to look at it. And I think second of all, and maybe this is just something that it's a little bit nebulous, it's kind of hard to define, but we've been doing this for, a few months now. And the feedback that we're giving consistently, if you're not using that feedback, if you're not learning from other people being reviewed, and we see kind of like really basic mistakes that we've already covered in previous AMAs, that might be a reason why we don't choose. If we see a collection that's just really not curated well, or if you're missing kind of the really obvious stuff that we always point out. And I just want you to kind of know that as somebody who's thinking about submitting. Go back and watch some of you don't have to watch all of them, but go watch a few of them. See what kind of feedback we give. And that might guide your questions, and it might also give you a little bit of a heads up for how you can get your stuff ready before you submit it to us.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and a really good thing to lead off on, is that we did see some collections that, had already been in an AMA previously that we reviewed about, cutting down some of the images and making it more cohesive, and some of those collections were submitted again and had made no changes or anything. So if you've already been in, one of the AMAs, and there's people that have submitted 2 and 3 times that have not yet, even if it's for a different series, you still should have learned some valuable information from that. And so that was part of the process in picking who we did and did not. But most of the time, we're trying to pick people that we think can get the most valuable information and knowledge out of it. But going forward, guys, we really need you guys, for the individual descriptions of the photos, to please have those filled out, and that we'll show some examples during the AMA of people who did a really good job at that. So with that said, if you don't have anything else, that we should go forward. Yeah, cool. So everyone can see my screen, I'm sure, and so I'm gonna start off here.
Yep.
And I think I'm in the right order, starting from musings.
Looks good.
And so just quickly read over the artist statement. Collections group of photographs by me from a period when I completely shifted to black and white, kind of an experimental for me. I was using a mirrorless camera, and has a feature where I could see the world in black and white through the viewfinder. So that's something that really relates to me because on my Fujifilm cameras, I could set them to acros and I could see the world in black and white. And it's a completely different way to see the world because now you're looking at the world through the battle of light and shadow. And in a way, I could focus more on the emotions of human beings and I'm less distracted by color. And it seems, so he says it was fun and also a challenge to myself, which helped me refine my photography style, and I got really good photographs during that period. So let's just, I like the artist statement here. It's really good. Entire year 2020, I shot in black and white. I tried to capture visual stories, moments which are decisive and unrepeatable. The decisive moment is definitely a big thing within street photography and has been since the beginning of street photography. These pictures made me happy when I created them, and also I can smell the places when I see them. That's a big thing. Your photographs should make you happy when you're out there and creating them, I think, and that obviously shows passion, and you could smell the place when he sees them. That's a nice nostalgia to have when looking at your own photography. Me with I tend to have a bad memory about a lot of things, and so photography for me, when I take images, each image for me, it's sort of when I look at my own images, I could kind of peel back like 10 or 15 minutes around that image of what happened within my life, which is really nice, especially when I'm traveling. So um, first initial, just when I looked at this here, I saw a floor price of 0.06, which is just really, really cheap and really fair for one-of-one photography. But the price goes up, it looks like, as it goes down the line. And so I know it's the top row for me, especially these first two. The images seem like a bit less strong and thought out, and than some of the ones here in the second row, which really have a lot of the meat and potatoes of um, composition and this photographer's ability to see life in a very intelligent way. And so, you want to weigh in a little bit on some of these, Dan, before we go?
Sure. Yeah, I think it is interesting. You pointed out that there's a lot of dynamic things happening in these photos, and that's what makes those first two feel like they don't fit in as well. Um, the rest of them all feel like kind of like street photos, and then the first two are just kind of they don't work as well for me. I think if I were going to pick like a favorite, I think Men in Black is it's really hard to beat. It's such an interesting. There's so much like weird movement happening, and yet it's not movement. If that makes any sense.
I guess
Um,
except for the man in the foreground, he's the only one
exactly.
that's providing real
He's moving.
movement. Yeah.
And then there's a guy like walking in exactly the same pose, right there.
Yeah.
And there's like an audience watching. It's interesting, and I think we've talked about kind of clever street photography, and there's some examples of that here in this collection, which is great. But I really like this one. I also really like the two bottom ones. Um, in
Yeah, I
the
feel
in the
the same way here. I really enjoy Leap of Faith, Life Goes On, and Dog Got Wings. You pointed out Dog Got Wings to me when we were talking about the work last night. I this is just an incredibly hard photograph to capture. I mean, I have a hard time just capturing a bird in this wingspan, and he captures this dog which looks like he actually has wings because the bird is just like even the nose of the bird becomes like the tail of the dog, which is like it boggles my mind. So go ahead
yeah,
and talk
it's
about that.
yeah, it's pretty cool, and I think this is one of those where man, I don't know that there's any way. I don't know how you could plan this. I think it's just a happy accident.
Well,
But
I mean,
it's about showing up, right? I mean, um, if you show up enough, I mean, just the way that the perspective is blended, it seems like I don't know how you would even do that. I don't know how you'd plan for that. So,
I mean, it could be a happy accident, but I do think that some of these photographers that are have some uh, premeditated idea as to what they're trying to go for here, and sometimes it might be that like he stepped up to make the bird fly off, and he had the idea to try to capture this, and maybe he was shooting at like a super fast rate of fire so that it could happen. But it could very well be a happy accident, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
Who
It's
knows?
it's interesting because you look at other stuff that he's done, and this is not clearly to me not a happy accident where it's like that's clearly a mirror, and while the lines
Yeah.
are interesting, the bird makes it even that much more interesting, and it'd be pretty hard pressed to say that this is a happy accident with a full bird wingspan and stuff. I think he was probably waiting for something to happen within that mirror
Yeah.
here.
Exactly.
So we know that the photographer has that level of intelligence when seeing things. This one for me is a really great images because it tends to ask a lot of questions to me about you know where he's shooting from, where how high above he is he holding a camera above his head? This woman, what's her relation to the child? The child's shadow is really beautiful. Like I'm more drawn to the shadow than I even am of his dive. But then
Well, the shadow looks like he's standing there looking down at himself, right?
yeah, it does. It's wonderful. And then, to go even further into just like looking at geometry and this, like you have these water drops that, I'm not sure if there's a light rain happening or a splash, but they mimic the tiles that are, they mimic the pattern within the tiles here. And so I don't know if, consciously the photographer knows that when they're taking it or if it's a subconscious thing. I think sometimes when I'm looking through my viewfinder, like I'm not even thinking about that, but my mind subconsciously sees the patterns just from like recognition over and over shooting. But I do think this is a really, really great image.
Yeah. No, it is great. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and while
So
we're
the
here, go ahead.
go ahead.
I'll say while we're here, the artist has no artist name. This is description stuff we're looking for, guys. Artist name, edition 1 of 1, location name. If you want the location name, that's fine. But at the very least, artist name, edition, collection name. We beat the drum on this, like I said, but people keep submitting. There's a bunch of submissions in here that don't have this stuff filled out. This stuff's important because when you sell the photograph, this information stays with the collector. You could no longer edit this anymore now. And so the collector has a piece that can't be edited by the original seller, and so if there's no indication that it's a 1 of 1, then what's to say that the photographer can't go and create 10 of these because it never said it in the description, but it's kind of acts as like a receipt or a piece of evidence, or a safety net for the collector to have this. I think this is very important, guys, to have this stuff, and even licensing now in your images, the type of licensing that you're going to give. So just want to
Well,
say
I
that.
think it's good to lean back in on that and say that I'm starting to see, we know that our friend Alpha Trilogy has said he's not buying if it doesn't have licensing information, and I'm starting to hear other collectors saying the same.
Sure.
I've heard a few people say, I want that all to be included. So,
Yeah, and so when I made a tweet the other day about the descriptions and I gave an example, it was heavily retweeted by many people, including collectors and unknown collector who's a really big collector within the space too, and they all agree on that stuff. So if collectors want that stuff, then it might be in your best interest to do some of that. So
yeah.
and yeah, and so looking at the collection, I think there's a lot of really clever and great street stuff here. Like I think the bottom row is really solid that I'm looking at, and I obviously I think that the artist thinks that too because the prices are higher on the bottom row here. I do enjoy this one from the top row though because it has this
Yeah.
coexisting idea, and it's four birds and four people. Well, four visible birds, and you have this bird over here, but it's interesting. It feels like the birds are sort of having this conversation. It also feels like the first bird is taking on the same posture as the first man here, which is it's oddly interesting. And so this
Right.
this juxtaposition between animals communicating and human beings, and then that just brings more questions to the photograph for me. And so
Right.
we looked at we looked at the ones that we said that we thought were maybe uh, less powerful. And while this is a interesting shot because these birds are like social distancing at the same um, distance here, and the waves look nice and stuff. It just doesn't have that level of intelligence through composition and thought that some of the other ones that do. It's more of a one liner, and so I feel as the same way as though as the standing alone one as well. So that would be like
Yeah.
my overall feedback for the collection is that I'd probably cut out some of the ones that don't feel that way. I mean, personally, you can see some of the ones I harder on here, some personal favorites and stuff,
Yep.
but yeah, that's up to the artist. So, anything else on that, Dan?
Well, the artist asked some questions. And the first one was that they plan to add more pieces in the future. Is this a good one? Is this a good plan? I'm gonna say that you really need to decide if you are trying to create some sort of an open collection that you're going to add to. You need to be super clear about that. And I think that you just need to know that some collectors don't like that. I lean more towards the idea that you do what you're going to do as an artist, but just make sure you communicate it clearly. If that means that collectors are turned off to what you're doing, hey, at least you own it. But I think if you're going to add, you got to make sure that's clear. You didn't say right in the description that it's a limited number, that it's only 10, which is interesting. So I think that it might be better to even say this is an ongoing project if you intend to add.
Sure. I mean, but at the going rate with only one sold, my idea personally would not to add until you have a significant amount of them sold if you're going to do an ongoing collection.
Yeah, exactly. His second question was, are all the 10 pieces of the collection strong, or do I need to modify? We kind of already answered that. There's
Yep.
2 or 3 here that are a little weaker than the rest. I would probably pull at least those first 2, and this is always up to you. You can decide, but those first 2 are a little bit, they're not quite as strong. But I think that answers all the questions.
Yeah, and while I like I understand the idea of adaptation. He becomes one with the next piece that comes in here. I'm on the fence about whether you could pull it or not. I'm not sure how great the images is as the idea is. So that's all I have.
Yeah. Hey, there's one more question, an additional question, and I kind of want to get ahead of this just so we can maybe start to begin cutting this question out of being asked. They said
Sure.
I kept the price range 0.06 to 0.2 ETH. Is this a good pricing strategy? We've beat this pricing thing to death at this point. I think if you're listening to the replay, or if you're listening live with us, price is just not. This is the thing everybody's curious about, and I'm going to tell you, there is no magic silver bullet.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
kind of gone over this, and I would maybe go look into the marketing strategies thread in MetaJungle because we've talked a lot about pricing there. Um, we can't tell you that what you've done is right or that's wrong. It has way more to do with the work, and unless you're way out of whack with what the market's doing, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that, it looks like on OpenSea, for one of ones generally right now, it looks like people are pricing between 0.1 and 0.3. And there's no hard rule. I'm just saying that that's what I'm seeing work priced at for the most part. I don't usually see over 0.3 unless it's like secondary sales that are for a collection that's already been sold out, but that's just what I've been seeing lately.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that being said, it's not that we don't want to answer your pricing questions. It's that the pricing questions have kind of already been answered lots of times in these AMAs.
Yep. And so we can move on to Infinite Layers by Gervik.
Yeah, this is great. And what's fun is we're going in reverse order from how we looked at them last night,
Yes, we are.
which is cool. Which is cool because they show up a little differently in my brain when I look at them because it's different order. I like it.
Yeah, and that's fine. And I'll read this artist statement small anyway. So climb mountains not so the world can see you, but so that you can see infinite layers. A collection with 9 beautiful one of one NFTs from the majestic Himalayas. Himalayan range is the highest mountain range in the world. And with this collection, I try to do justice with its beauty. The immersive view of these mountains and fog and layers is something I cherish. For me, the layers of these mountains represent opportunities in one's life, opportunities that we don't see, but that are present one behind the other. And so on my initial on this is that I really love the color temperature contrast here between the warms and colds. And I favorited the 4 pieces that stood out to me. And I know you wanted to talk about this collection, Dan. How do you feel about the collection?
Well, here's what's super what's interesting to me. I don't know from the description how these were taken, but there's a very, very specific sort of filmy kind of vibe to these, and I really like it. The specifically, I look at Vespertine. It's the one with the two birds over the layers. It's
Yeah,
that second one
yeah,
right
I
there.
see it. Mhm.
This is the layers and the colors are so subtle, and I just feel like this could be like a background wallpaper sort of sort of thing. It's so peaceful. I really like
Mhm.
this. Um, and I think this is kind of the vibe of this collection for me. These peaceful, misty sort of calm layers. Everything feels calm. This all feels like it's super early morning, as the day is getting started.
Yeah, this one was really peaceful for me to look at. This one here, I
Yeah.
thought this was really beautiful. I love the use of composition here with the plant life just in the front here, and it's just out of focus to the point where you can still see it, but it's non-distracting. And we know that the bird here is sort of the subject, and these layered mountains out here, and the temperature of the blue to pink is just a really beautiful way that he's done it
Yep.
here.
Well, and,
Mhm.
and look at maybe click on one of these and look at your descriptions and everything because it's all solid.
Sure. Artist, collection, location, edition, license. Like take notes down on this, guys. The description's looking like this, and this is what we're looking for. It looks like he even as properties, well, as artist. I mean, I added into my properties edition 101, and
Yep.
some of the licensing too, because like Dan and I have talked about this. This is like sort of like the metadata. I think properties is the future of how algorithms are going to find out whether or not you have properties within your work, and so I think it's a good idea.
Yep. I'm typing it out here in the chat as well. Artists, if you're listening to this, if you've bothered to go ahead and put your licensing information in your description, make it a property as well.
Or I agree with that, and that's what I'm doing from here on out.
Yeah, so these are great. In terms of, let's see what we've got for questions.
And look at the
Uh,
price. The prices are so good.
yeah,
0.05 for one of one. That sounds like an addition pricing.
well, and we say that, I said all this stuff about pricing, but like I'm going to point it out when it seems like a value. These seem like they're a very good value. I could see a lot of collectors coming in and snagging these up, and then you're in a good spot where you can go and sell some more, sell another collection with a slightly different, with a different theme. Um,
Yeah,
the artist asked if the collection is cohesive enough, and I would say I think it definitely is.
yeah.
Um, I
It's the
don't
mark.
Yeah, I don't know that anything here doesn't fit, which is great. He also asked if it would be good to extend the collection, or should I mint another collection altogether? I wouldn't add any to this. I think that this is a good, solid group. I would say move on and do something different. You know, if you're gonna mint something new, mint something different, and consider that you want to pick up some sales before you do that.
For sure. And any other questions? Because otherwise, I think
Um, I think
Feel
that's
free.
it. And then I was just going to look here. Yeah, so we've already got 2 sold, um, which is cool. And I'll just say if you're eyeing this collection at all, you need to go look at Vespertine. You need to look at Oblivion. Those are pretty awesome. Also, Enchanting is pretty cool too. I know we looked at that one last night. It has the crescent moon above the mountain.
Yeah, these are really nice one of ones for really, really nice price. So,
That's great. No, I don't have any other feedback. Just I think it's great. We just need to get more people to see it.
yep, exactly. So perfect. We can move on to the next collection.
Yeah. So this next one, stolen street moments. Really short statement there at the top. Capturing moments in street. Something I really connect to. I love how a dramatic scene is created when the light encounters smoke. There are some special moments that you find in the street that won't be happened again. This collection is all about stolen moments taken from the streets of India during a period of around 4 years. Even though this is super short, I would pull out like the section of this collection is all about stolen moments. You've already said that, um, and that won't be happened again is kind of grammatically weird. So I would maybe ask a friend to help with that,
Mhm.
or you can just change it. That won't happen again. Just happen.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of great photography here. It just doesn't make sense together as a story. And so what I did was I favorited ones that I felt had to do with solitude, which could be its own story. And it's this is one of my favorite images here. Of a wintry winter morning. I think this is just an absolutely beautiful photograph of the leading lines of the train, the sunlight hitting the sides of the train, the dog walking behind the man, the 2 men out in the distance in the mist. This is just yeah, this is just a really, really fantastic photograph. And I think it has more photographs like this that have to do with, this idea of solitude, and these are really, really, really well done. I mean, I love the fog. I love the 8:17 a.m. and it's the same color as her jacket. You got greens, yellows, and reds here. People are walking up here. You got a lot of dimension, leading lines. It all ties in, and so
Yeah.
something like this just it doesn't make sense for me in this collection, but it could make sense for me on another collection. So you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think we we included this one because this was our literal thought. These are great photos. They don't seem like they really go together.
Yeah. And
And
that's exactly why we both included it. We both had the same exact feeling on it. We think the photographer's a fantastic photographer like this shot here. It's just that um, they don't feel right within a collection together. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people could learn from is curating a collection that has a mood and a feeling.
yeah, and that's the question. That was the question the artist asked. Do all the images resonate each other and with the title? And I'm gonna say I don't really think they do. Like I almost look at these and I think if I saw these as one-offs in Foundation or on Super Rare, I wouldn't bat an eye because I would say these are all individually good photos. They don't seem like they belong in a collection together.
Exactly. This
And
is
then does the price difference put a bad impression? Just the fact that the prices are not all the same. Uh, yeah, I don't know that
36
that makes.
1.5.
It's a pretty broad spread. Is my only thought. You know, you've got as low as 0.18, as high as 0.36. 0.36 seems like I don't know. I don't think it's bad. I just think that it's more than it's double what you're charging for a couple of these. It's more than double what you're charging for these first two.
Yeah, I mean, my honest opinion, as far as like one of the weaker images in the collection, is one that's priced the highest. I do think it's this shot when compared to something priced like a lot cheaper, like this one here, or even this one here, which is I
Yeah.
just think is just a much better image for me at least. And so I'm a little confused on that pricing.
Well, we've kind of said this before that if you're going to price one higher, you probably should make a case for that. You don't need to say I priced this one higher because, but the
Hmm.
story. the story that's included in the description should probably indicate why it's special. So that's all. I think that's all I've got for this one.
Yeah, and they have title and artist and medium and price,
Yep.
edition, license. Great job on that stuff. So.
One quick thing I'll add is that while you maybe would need to adjust some of these by, you'd have to, actually, I don't know that you need to change it. You could very easily, if you decided to create a different collection, you can just move these pieces to different collections. Or you could just, yeah. So just know that if you haven't sold them, it's really easy. In fact, even ones you've sold can move to different collections in OpenSea, as long as they were lazy.
Like this is the one that you sold, so this could move to another collection, you're saying?
I have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that you can rename the collection it's in and move the other ones out. I know you can at least do that.
So unknown collector, yes, he's on top of a lot of people doing things immediately in MetaJungle. He liked that, and so I saw that one was sold, and so that's why I kind of focused on ordering the ones that are kind of about solitude, and maybe this series is about that, and then you have a next series about something else. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to say that you should go messing with your collections a whole bunch. I'm just saying if you wanted to move some things out of here, you could without deleting them. And you can potentially, the one thing I know you can do for sure is that even though that one's already sold, you can change the name and the description of the collection that it's in, even though it's already been sold, which is cool.
Yeah, you have a lot of options with OpenSea when we make mistakes, which we all have.
Good work, though. Good work overall.
Very good. So we're moving on to it's an Ambient Desert. And so I really wanted to talk about this one because I actually made a thread today on Twitter about how it really frustrates me that OpenSea doesn't have the ability for us to sequence our artwork in the order in which it should be seen. And so I'm going to show you how it popped up and how it defaults high to low to me. And so, and this is how we looked at the collection last night. And so my opinion changed. So this is how I originally looked at the collection. And so when I looked at this, I said, there's too many of these, there's too many of these tree photos, and there's some that I really, really love. But then if you actually go and you look at it, how the what happened?
That's awesome. No, I just did exactly what you did. Oldest to newest.
Now you switch it to oldest, and then I realized that now I favorite all three of these because I see that this is one beautiful photograph in one. It's number one, number two, and number three. And maybe as a collector, you want to own all three of those because you can display it like that in your museum. And so now it makes a lot more sense to me. So I think it's really unfair to us one of one artists that we have to default to low to high because of PFP projects. And I think that by now we should absolutely have the option to sequence and have it shown in the order in which we want it to be seen. And if you go to my desktop, her promotional poster is even better in the way in which it's seen.
Yeah,
right?
That's great.
Because I like even how this line leads down to this line, and it's very well thought out. So this is a lesson in curation and how important curation is, because the series reads a lot different to me now that I have it listed up like this. And so I really love these three images here. And Dan talked about this one last night with me, the 7 Footsteps. This is gorgeous. I haven't seen any image like this before. I love how it's real rugged on the left side and shadowy, and you just have this flat, beautiful pastel color and moving right into the blue, and this man, subject, everything. It's great.
Yeah, it holds up when you zoom in, which is kind of cool. And I'm anybody who follows me knows I'm a sucker for dunes, so
yeah,
I really like this series. But here's what's interesting to me is that, like you said, those three that go together. It was interesting because I think like one and none of them were that compelling on their own, but all together, yeah, you kind of have to buy all three, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think
Which leads me to art. Hey, artist, number 3 is not for sale currently, so you need to fix that.
mm-hmm. This is my favorite image, rainbow sand dunes. I think this is
Yep.
absolutely beautiful. I love I love the bone remains of the animal that's left behind, and obviously
Looks like an
the arc,
ibex, right?
like a what?
It's an ibex. Looks like it's horns from an ibex.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful, the placement in which you put this composition, where the ibex is, and the rainbow's arc, just like perfectly arcing over this dune. This would be, my favorite shot in the collection. I do think that these are strong on their own. I do like these, but I definitely think I love them as a single uh, piece like this here.
Yeah.
Being critical in the series, well, maybe there's some that just uh, aren't as strong. I mean, I think for me, uh, the top portion of this image is stronger than the bottom. If we're looking at it from a minimalism standpoint, then these trees, they sort of bother me. These overlapped trees and stuff here. Like maybe if there was no trees on the road and it was just straight road, and um, there was less going on in the here, and it was just more abstract, then I would be more on board with it. And that's it's just my opinion. I do think we have a lot of shots that have like these little trees and stuff in here, and maybe we can call some of these and pull some out, if up to the artist. I didn't zoom in and see the gentleman that's up here. This is pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, and look at the one with the big red number 5. So
Yes.
whenever, almost every time I do this, I always click on it and I like zoom in. There's actually a photographer with a tripod right down where the dune line meets the ground.
It's like over here.
Yeah, and to me, this is one where I feel like I know you may not. Obviously, you'd have to move a lot, but I wonder if this would be a much stronger composition if if it was shot from like 100 feet to the left with the tree and the photographer in the frame, but not all those other trees.
Yeah, I'm just looking for like a greater level of abstraction within this image.
Yep.
It's hard for me
Yeah.
to figure out what the subject is, and if I don't know what the subject is, I like it to be abstract.
Yeah. But like what's interesting is look, there's a full grown tree at the bottom of this dune. Like that could be a really cool perspective thing, but you've got to isolate it better.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like it. In terms of questions, the artist said, let's see, descriptions are written, sizes, and license. Let's look at the descriptions. I think everything's solid there, right?
Yeah,
Looks good to me.
yeah, yeah. We have everything needed and a lot more. So the
Yeah,
stories related as well. So.
I think that's pretty solid. Yep. No, this is good. This is good. I think, like you said, there's maybe a couple in here that are not quite as strong, and maybe even just a crop would help with some of these. But um, I would maybe, I know your marketing thing already has it, but if there's any way you can talk about the first 3 together, showcase those together when you're marketing and when you're on Twitter and those kind of things, I think that would be really awesome because the right collector's going to come along and go, oh yeah, I want all 3 of those.
Exactly.
You can even, this is weird too, but I guess you have to already own them, but yeah, it could almost be worth thinking about some way to mint those 3 and then bundle them together.
Yeah, you see how it keeps bringing back to price high to low? Like,
Yep.
is there no option to like leave me alone about that and just let me see it how the artist wants it to be seen? I don't think there is.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think we've covered this one. We really like the one with the rainbow. I think we both agree on that.
yeah, I really do love that one. So, what is this now? Memory, open page, okay, some collection on their part. All right, yeah, I
Move
think it's a
on
really
to,
beautiful collection. So,
you ready to move on? Yeah.
yeah, sure. Moving on to Mirrorness. And so this is a lot. I guess I'll read the artist statement. I haven't read this artist statement actually, so it's a pretty short one too. So Mirrorness is The property of objects to reflect and show up as part of a reflected scene. Sometimes objects reflect things as they are. Sometimes there are just beautiful light, shadows, and shapes. Sometimes reflections represent a different, unusual, non-existent world and merge reality with looking glass. Sometimes we can find it in some meaningful coincidences and even ourselves, and everyone sees it on his own. Mirrorness is the property of my eyes to reflect people, surroundings, and myself. Collection consists of 11 photos presented as a one-of-one editions. Let's see if that was listed in here. So you got title, that's good. Story, process, edition, author, collection. Okay, wow, they've got everything.
Yep.
Cool, very good. And so,
But I'm gonna say this, just good to know. It's not true for every photo. I just pulled up the flow, which is the one with the cars and the car reflection. There you go.
yeah, so let's be consistent, guys. If we're gonna provide a
Не
high level
успел
of
описание написать, потому что я уже ее отдал. В тот момент.
Do
Is
we
this
have
the
our
artist?
artist?
Is it because this one is sold or something or no? Oh, well, this one doesn't have a price, so is it sold already or can make an all Pacon 76 Studio owns that? Is that the same person who created this? No, so it's already owned, and that's why he can't change the description. So he probably just got the knowledge from MetaJungle after he had
Fair
already
enough.
sold it,
Fair enough. That's okay. That's okay.
which
This
makes
is
sense.
how it works, right? Okay, so let me point out one that's really awesome.
Yeah,
Ghost of the Guest, the one with the chair at the table.
yeah, you pointed out this last night. It's so good.
This is great. It's got all this. It's got all the descriptions and everything. And read the description too. Story: Ghost of the Guest. Photo is a part of my Mirrorness collection. The photo is about the time when COVID has happened. Emptiness was everywhere. Nobody but ghosts were in restaurants, hotels, and nightclubs. And then
great.
there's a whole about the process. We were having breakfast with my wife in a cafe. Everything was closed, but we managed to find a place. Tables there were separated by plastic anti-COVID screens. I noticed the interesting reflection of my dear wife in one of them and captured it. Reflection was looking like a ghost. My wife didn't even notice that I was photographing her, so the photo came out in a candid way. That is really a great description. And maybe the best part about it, look at the reflection of the shoes.
I know.
It's so funny because it's all old-timey looking because it's black and white and there's like
But
that.
then the shoes are like Yeezys or Adidas or something like.
Yeah, no, this is great. I love the description. I really like the way this is put together. So congrats on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and I both are enjoying these kind of clever street photography collections.
Sure.
It's something that we were talking about a little bit last night. Mike and I spent about an hour just kind of reviewing all of these. And one of the things that just kind of comes up is that this kind of photography is about patience. It's about going and spending time and finding these unique sorts of views and waiting for something to happen. I think, I don't remember who it was, if it was Henri Cartier-Bresson or if it was somebody else, but they were talking about that basically you just go and you find the scene and you camp out and you wait for the thing to happen. And this stuff is very clearly that. Like a lot of these things are just, I can tell you camped out and you waited for the thing to happen.
Yeah, and that's definitely a strategy that I've employed in some of my street photography where like I find an interesting area where things are happening. I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna sit here for 15 minutes and you see things starting to happen and you're like, okay, you're waiting, you almost have a shot, you got a good shot, lead up, you have a then you wind up having a great shot. And I remember Sabode was teaching a workshop just on that the other day, and so I think some of my best photographs come from when I'm out by myself shooting, because if I tend to go with a photography friend, then they might not be as interested in staying on that corner, and they might be like, there's nothing going on here, I'm moving on. So I'll be like, okay, move on, I'll see you in a half hour.
You know what's funny, Mike? I think that applies. I think that totally applies to other kinds of photography. I almost always make my best landscape work when I'm shooting by myself, because I always feel, even if they don't say anything, I'm always a little self-conscious about standing at one place too long. If I'm
Yeah.
with people.
You start to feel like, oh, are these people waiting on me? They want to continue the hike, or they in landscape, do they want to go on to the next thing? Am I holding a group? And it's like, I don't need all those things going on in my head. I need to be with the
Yeah.
landscape, and that's it.
Exactly. Hey, so the feedback questions on this one are pretty basic, not a whole lot complicated. Overall feedback, I think we've kind of given that. Collection consistent and well described, yeah. And then asking, is pricing on point? And I mean, overall, like this is priced exactly where I expect it to be. Like I don't have any issues there. I think that it's priced well. There's a couple that are priced a little higher. My favorite one is 0.25. Pricing feels fine. The description is great. I think the quality is really good. If I had to pick at anything in here, like I think maybe the cat photo is not as strong as the rest.
Yeah, for me, it's like these two right here. Like you said, the cat photo is one I didn't favorite.
I like the description. I like the kind of a comedic description. I wake up in the early. I'm waiting for someone to come and buy my stuff. No worries. If you have no money, milk is the best currency. And then when I was photographing a scene, I tried to think as this cat chilling inside the amber shop. I'm happy I can share my imaginary world through my photography. It is a clever description. I just think the photo is not as clever as the rest.
Sure. Is this one here? I didn't. I couldn't kind of come up with my own story on this. Maybe the graffiti is too distracting, or just maybe what's happening in the background just doesn't really tie into a story for me in a way that the other ones did. So if I had to pull any, I would personally, if it was my work, I'd pull these two. I think everything else works. I mean, I looked close up on this one too that's called chess, and it was interesting that you sort of had these people on this board, and it makes me think like humans being pawns on a chessboard in a simulated reality or something. So I did enjoy that.
Right.
So,
Oh, exactly.
yeah.
That's good.
Cool.
That's good. Ready to move on?
Sure.
Okay. So this next one, the Enchantment, is by Bondu, and I'm just going to say this: Bondu is a super engaged man. He's on my Twitter feed all the time. Super kind person. I first became aware of his work when a few weeks ago when I was just kind of looking for cool work and found, and I have already liked Shadow Play, that bottom one. I think that is a fantastic photo. So I just want to say, if there's any benefit to being around and supportive, please know that we do notice it. Not just us, but all the other members of the community notice it. We all know who you are. So that.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing when we were talking about the work last night, and Dan brought that up. And I was like, Bondu, he's always supporting all of my tweets and retweeting my new work when it drops, and just being just a really good community member. And so, and so we took a look at the collection. I mean, seems like the ones that I favorited were the ones that felt a little more true to life as far as colors go. And so, Kingdom of Fog, really, my favorite ones Dan just actually pointed out. But I do love I love foggy scenes. They really do a lot for me. I remember when I was in the Montana Glacier National Park, we had a lot of fog come across the Highline Trail, and it just feels really beautiful to be there during the fog. It feels like it's super beautiful, and it could be a bit eerie. It could be a bit just moody and majestic, or whatever you want to say. I love this image too. Feels because I love where the clouds and everything lands here, and how we just get these subtle colors down here. And it reminds me of how a painter would paint it if they had to paint something,
Right.
without seeing it, and and it's just composed so well. The ones that are bluish to me, they don't do it for me as much. I think that it's harder for me to find a clear subject in a shot like this. I do understand the mood of using blue.
Well, let me address that as well. I think that
please.
if you were to let's look at those top Peekaboo and Mysticity.
Yeah, I think Mysticity is the one I like.
Right, exactly. See, it's a better version of the other one, and I haven't. I wouldn't say that I've shot these kind of conditions a ton, but I have enough of these on in my own hard drives and in my Lightroom catalog that I can tell you that this mist probably was changing every 10 to 15 seconds, right? And the mysticity has just the right amount of you can see through enough to see the outlines of other trees, and then you can see super clear versions of those ones in the front. I think the other photo next to it, there's just not enough. It's not open enough. It's a little too obscured. So for me, it doesn't work as well. And I think also the blue tint on Peekaboo is just a little over the top, whereas the one next to it has a more subtle blue gradient that feels a little more natural.
I agree with that. I like the dark version of blue
Yeah.
here. And then if we move on to movie scene, now we're at a completely different bluish green, and so here's where it sort of takes away a cohesive aspect to a collection when you have so many different color temperatures and tones.
Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is Bondu. First of all, I like the work here a lot. One thing that might not be a bad idea would be to consider. You don't have in your descriptions here what the size of these photos are, and I don't know if there's a. I think OpenSea just serves them up the way they are. They feel like they might be just a little soft, which leads me to believe maybe you uploaded kind of lower res photos. And so I was just curious if you might have higher res versions you can upload, because on my monitors, and I'm looking at a modern MacBook with the Retina display. When I pull these up and look at them individually, they're a little soft, which it works with a couple of them, but I would like to see them a little sharper. So I don't know if that's what you got in camera, or if maybe you uploaded them a little lower res.
Now, what do you consider, Dan, to be like bottom line of resolution that you would find acceptable? Like 3024 by 4032, is that good?
I kind of think that this is a little subjective. Everybody has their own opinions on this. I think it's good to kind of consider that web resolution 2048 on the long edge is kind of bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if you can get into the range where you're more like 3000 on the short edge, that is going to make sure that they look good even on big monitors. And
Yeah.
this is something to think about. Right now we're looking at these in a little grid on a little laptop or a computer screen at home, right? Or maybe you're looking at your phone. But what happens when somebody buys one of those big 42 or 55-inch frames at home, the TV frame that turns into a art frame? Is it going to still hold up if the NFT that you uploaded is only 2,000 pixels wide?
And yeah, and if you think about it, the future of like Web3 and virtual reality, like home spaces where you put on virtual reality glasses and you could have your walls sort of be like a snowy scene or something. Like people are probably going to have things that are at that size and resolution. And so, I mean, even the last like 7 or 8 generation iPhones can produce 30 by 24 on the low side and 40 by 32 on the high side at 12 megapixels, which is
Yeah.
twice the size of what you just mentioned.
To put this in perspective, if you want it to fill up an entire laptop screen, it needs to be 2,500 pixels wide.
And so everybody should probably have those resolutions unless you're shooting. I don't even know what shoots lower than that, but you could always check the resolution of the image just by right clicking and looking at its properties before you do upload that. And so once you've sold it to the collector, if you sold it at an ultra low resolution, then I don't know if there's much you could really do except send them another one at a high resolution. But now is it a one of one anymore? I don't know how that works.
Yeah. Hey, quick question. Or I wanted to say, Bondu wanted to say something, I think.
Yeah, sure. Love to.
Yeah, thank you, Mike and Dan. Thank you so much for picking my work. About the resolution, I actually edit my photos on phone in Lightroom Mobile because my laptop isn't strong enough to run Photoshop, and I can't yet afford another, expensive laptop right now. So I have to buy a RAM or something. So that's why I think kind of the proportions are a little bit off, but I'll be absolutely be working on that.
Okay,
No, that's
great. Good
great.
to hear.
Right. Yeah, and Bondu, I'm glad you're here on. It's good talking with you. I love your work, and you're such a great member of the community. So thanks for being here. Thanks for submitting. And if you ever have any questions about any of this stuff technically, please reach out, DM me, whatever. You know how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, I feel the
Thank you
same
so
way.
much. Thank you so much. And Dan already knows my next collection, what it's going to be. So I'm just excited to show you that as well when it's done. So thank you very much.
For sure.
Cool.
Good. Well,
Well,
I was just going to say also, his questions were pretty basic. The one thing he had asked is the collection's quite old, and I would say I don't think it actually is. So I think this is a distinctive enough look at stuff that I don't know that you need to necessarily wait to do the next thing.
mhm. Yeah. If the next thing is different from this, right?
Yep.
All right. Interesting. Is that the only question?
His other ones were, the kind of the usual stuff. Are they good enough? Descriptions and pricing. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Sure.
think I think
Okay.
all that stuff's good. Yeah.
So this next one, uh, illusions of daily life. A very short artist statement here. There are illusions in the flow of life which we do not see always. These collections include illusions that I captured in Istanbul. All shots belong to Gokhan. So, since this is such a small artist statement, I'd like to see if the descriptions have the information that they need. And so, yeah, photographer, edition, size, license. Yeah, so it's like
Yeah, that's good. And
descriptions here.
there's a few in here that are real standouts, right? That third
Uh,
one over on the top there.
oh yeah,
That's great. And when
yeah.
we were talking last night, Mike's like, I don't even know what I'm looking at here. This is,
I don't know how. I didn't know how to figure it out. But Dan was
yeah,
saying it's a reflection from the inside. It looks like it's just like his body. You can see X-ray vision through this guy. Really interesting.
yeah. No, it's super cool. Once again, we've kind of gotten into, clever perspective juxtapositions, and I think that we like this kind of work. I think that this can definitely find an audience. Looks like probably my favorite one in the whole thing is already sold. Um, oh yeah, the cat one. That one at the bottom, that bottom corner one. That's so good. The angle
Mm-hmm.
of the angle of what you can see of her face perfectly matches the light. It's almost like she's
Like
projecting
her,
the light.
yeah, like her vision. That's what her vision can see. It extends that like a flashlight.
So good.
And then you
Um,
see all the bellies with belly buttons, and they're just in the darkness here. And the roof looks like a fish tank. No, the roof looks like a sky. I guess it's like what a wild photograph.
Well, it's interesting too if you look at, and once again, I think this one suffers from the fact that it's already sold, so that our description is kind of is kind of lacking. But here's what is interesting to me too about it is that she's obviously wearing this head scarf, and I don't know. Forgive me, I don't know exactly what it's called because I don't know what religion, but there's this modesty thing, and then she's looking at all of these mannequins with bare midriffs
Yeah,
with tight pants. Kind of interesting, right?
yeah, it is. And what's also interesting is how the feet have like the same complexion as her nose goes to the foot, 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 ends on her nose there.
Yeah.
Everything is just yeah, really well executed within a composition.
Oh, and I just noticed one of the mannequins. It says has like a brand on the side of it that says candy. Like it's just,
Really?
yeah, the one that's right there in the light. Yeah, if you zoom in on it, it says candy. Just it's a definite materialistic thing mixed. It's such an interesting photo.
Juxtaposition, yeah, of
Yeah,
that
for sure.
lifestyle to another one, and there's a lot of clever. I mean, this is funny. The thirsty
Yeah.
Joker, like, uh, so I feel like the photographer has to sort of like see this clown first, and then be like, and see some stuff going on, and say like,
Yeah.
I have to get low enough to the point where it looks like he's drinking this while these guys are drinking at the ATM.
Yeah. No, these are really cool. There's a couple that maybe don't work as well for me. Oh yeah, that one's great.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
This
There's one.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
you said that doesn't work as well for you, and I feel like this one
No,
is too try hard for me and doesn't work as much as the other ones. Where the other ones feel like something that has happened organically. This kind of feels set up, but I also don't really. I don't it's not as good for me as the other ones.
yeah, the RH plus, the person putting their hand over their face.
Yeah, I didn't favorite this one too. I
Yeah.
didn't
That
necessarily.
one is just, ultimately what you've done is you've set up a great collection of clever moments, and then there's a few that just are not clever enough. Yeah, I think this RH one is not clever enough to fit in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're trying to say is like this liquid is going right into his mouth, which is like smart composition and stuff, but I just don't know that it works as well as the other ones, especially the fact that I had to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, it's not immediately clever enough to grab your attention. Whereas, like, look at Cloud Seller.
Yeah, sure. Cloud
Right.
Seller.
I mean, that's great, right? With the basket of the clouds.
Yeah, the basket going into the clouds. Yeah, like it could be cotton
That's
candy
cool.
or something. It makes a lot of sense, and I like that he's holding up in this one here, this like piece that sort of looks like a makeshift mirror.
Yeah. So some of the questions for this one. What are the key points while creating collections and pricing? What are the steps for the beginners to be successful? And then, does street photography have a chance of being popular? I think I was going to answer that first one. Mike, you know maybe a little more than I do. You've had even more success with street. There are people paying very high amounts of money for street photography. So
yeah, I mean, sure. I have friends on Super Rare that are selling a piece for like $20-something thousand. That's street photography. So
there
yeah,
are some collectors who that's all they buy. I was thinking of like Jeff Excel is one that like has this kind of an amazing collection of street photography, and he's always looking for street photography.
Yeah, he's a very honest guy too. Because when I showed him my last body of work, he just said, he goes, I don't like this. I like all your other work.
He did the same to me. I showed him my street. I showed him my street work, and he was like, "Yeah, these look like they're posed. They're not candid enough for me." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, he goes, I don't like this work, but I do love a lot of your other work. I was like, oh, thanks for the, I appreciate that, Jeff.
The answer is yes, people are buying, but the answer is that I think the clever, there's a this is like the old Spinal Tap. There's a fine line between clever and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
If things are too clever, they can sometimes be seen as kind of kitschy, and there's some collectors who aren't going to buy that. So the fine line is to create work that is meaningful and clever. To me, that bottom photo right there that you're hovering over, that is a fine art collectible sort of piece. It's not just funny. It's not just goofy looking. It has some social commentary work to it. And I think and I think that's the thing you're kind of looking for, is clever but also meaningful. That's what collectors are, I think, looking for. They're not going to buy something that's just funny. I mean, they might. There's no accounting for taste, but people, I think, are looking for something that's meaningful, and if it happens to be clever and kind of funny at the same time, that's just a plus.
I think this is interesting with the rainbow. is like
Oh, yeah.
coming out of the rainbow umbrella, like it's creating the rainbow. That's interesting.
Yeah, I like it too.
And you said some of them to the point where like maybe it's too funny or stupid, but I think this one works. I really like this curiosity kill the cat. There's so many shapes going on here, and
This reminds me of the oh gosh, there's those two artists that do the really weird, placing themselves in really weird positions. And I'm pulling a blank off the top of my head, but it kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I don't know which artist that is. So yeah, is there any other questions that the artist had?
Just nothing that we haven't kind of already answered. I think there's one question. What are the steps for beginners to be successful? And I think, well, first of all, being able to go back and listen to these is I think helpful. See what we've told your peers. Also, maybe if there's one really important thing that I've made this mistake. I know Mike, you've mentioned it before as well. Don't be in a rush to mint and put stuff out there. Take your time to like look at and understand what you're doing, and to think about what is the message you're trying to communicate. To really think about your pricing ahead of time. To just kind of try to slow down a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like think about how much are you doing as far as community and involvement goes, to the point where your work is getting clicks and your website's getting clicks and people are pulling it up and know your name and stuff. Where are you sharing your work? You've submitted to this, so you're sharing, so that's good. So a lot of people, they drop their stuff and they fall off, and they don't post anything on Twitter, and they just go to work and they say they don't have any time, and then they realize 6 months later why none of them is sold. And it's like, well, it's like everything else in life. It's like you kind of get what you put in. So
yeah,
there's a lot of things. Yeah.
Boss Mom had said, letting us know that, or Goon had said, Sammy wanted to comment on this collection.
Okay, could unmute them.
Hi, hi Mike, hi Dan.
Hello.
Yes. How are you guys?
We're good.
Good.
Amazing. I think so much of learning happens every day on this AMA, and was very interested to know about your thoughts on this collection, because I think I saw this just a couple of days back when he didn't have a sale. I think this surfaced across on my timeline, and I think in the last couple of days he had two, which means that people are resonating with the street style of of showcasing work. Just one small observation out here is that when I saw this collection for the first time, I thought it's pretty diverse in terms of the compositions, the juxtapositions, the kind of placement of the objects, which makes me think at times. Of course, wanted to know your opinion. Then is that if as a street photographer we come in with such different kind of photographs, such as different kind of way of placement of subjects and themes. For example, if you look at that little ring on that person's head, which I feel is one of the best images from this collection, yeah, which was the first one that got sold. Vis-a-vis, there's another picture where the rainbow has been placed, which is like a very different version of juxtaposition, right? So if you have like two such widely different ways of looking at things in a same collection, do you think it resonates well with collectors? Do you think that even the juxtaposition might need to have like a bit of a cohesion or similar treatment to these forms, which is very interesting for me to note?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, and I think that's kind of what we're getting at, is that ultimately, if you're going to put pieces together in a collection, there needs to be something thematic that brings them together. If I look at this, Mike, if you don't mind looking at the description, it's a super short description of the collection. Illusions in the flow of life, which we do not see always. These collections include illusions that I captured in Istanbul. I mean, this is pretty straightforward, and I think that is a clear consistent theme. So even though these are really diverse and there's a lot of different things here, I think these all go together. Like there's like only a couple here that maybe are not quite as strong, but I think that they, even though they're super diverse, they still work together because there's that one binding theme.
Yeah, there's three for me that don't work, and it's falling. This shot, it feels forced, and I don't necessarily get it as much as I do with the other ones. Uh, RH plus this shot here, and then also TV signal, uh, which is, yeah, clever placement. Yeah, understand the juxtaposition and stuff between the forks coming out of here and these coming out of his head. His expression doesn't do much for me. The walls are just too. I don't know. This is it's not as appealing as a photo. I mean, I wouldn't personally want it in my photo collection vault, but like something like this, I would. Something like this, something like this, something like this. There's a lot of really great ones that I would. So if I had to point out, it'd be those three. And these are these some of these shots, they feel a little more serious, than like this, um, or like this, right?
Yeah.
This shot,
Yeah.
like um, where it's just a one-liner about perspective, really, and I know it's clever, but like this isn't just a one-liner about perspective. Like this is much more than that, like uh, brings up thoughts of like what a halo means, and what this guy has done and gone through in his life, like to the point where like does he deserve a halo? Like I don't know. It's just I have more thoughts on some of these other ones where some of these hit as one-liners, where the other ones have a fuller story from my imagination to kind of just go off with. And like this just doesn't bring my imagination anywhere. It's just like, oh, that's really clever that he lined it up like that, and that's it.
Right.
So I think there's a difference between a one-liner and like real meat and potatoes that I really want to dive into and continue to look at and question.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's kind of what we got, that whole thing we were getting at is the idea that if it's just clever and like the watermelon, with the watermelon and the TV antennas, I just, to me, I feel like I want there to be multiple layers to the image where I want it to be saying something. This doesn't seem like it's saying something. It just seems like it's kind of, oh yeah, look, I caught this guy when he was standing in front of these antennas. Doesn't
Exactly.
it's not really saying anything. Whereas the halo, you're right. The halo, it's an interesting juxtaposition because it's like this grungy brick rock wall. This is not. It's not a beautiful young cupidy looking person. It's an older man who doesn't seem to be who's you know I don't know what the expression is. I don't know what their body language is saying, but it doesn't seem like it goes with halo, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like he's wiping a tear out of his eye or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, like, what is this person doing? And I don't know, that to me, I want it to be saying something on a different level that's beyond what the photo is obviously showing me.
I know I've said this many times, but for me, the best photographs ask more questions than give answers.
Yeah.
And so, in a picture like this, while I do think it's very clever, it doesn't really ask me any questions at all. It kind of
Yeah.
just gives me the answer that
Right.
you set this up in a way that this art piece is drinking from it, and while hard to do and find and clever, I don't tend to sit there and contemplate photography, and I don't do the same with this, like I said, and I don't do the same with the TV signal image. And so that's the difference, I think, between um, good, clever work and great, clever work. And so, like, maybe let's try to, you can maybe call this down to what you think is the most great out of what we've talked about. And then maybe when you head out into the streets again, you can think to yourself, well, these guys pointed out some things that I'm really intelligent with, and so maybe some of these other things that I've done are just not
Yeah.
at your
Well,
you know your
something else
there
to think about.
your level, not my level, your level, because I
Well,
don't
and think
shoot
about this.
this. Yeah,
Think about this too. Like, still take these photos, take these clever photos, right? And then your job is to curate your own work into the absolute best. And so I think it's great. And I look forward to seeing more of this. And this is inspiring me to go try to shoot more and to think about looking for meaningful stuff like this. So it's cool. Ready to move on?
yeah, yeah. We spent a lot of time on this one. Definitely ready to move on, for sure.
Okay. So the next one
Cool.
is the sunsets, the magical hour.
Yeah, sunset's the magical one. And
And
so,
this is cool. Go ahead, Mike.
um, yeah, I was just going to try to quickly read some of the artist statements. Sunsets have always captivated me because of their beauty and elegance. When it comes to watching a sunset, I would never turn down the chance. When I see a beautiful sunset, I feel a sense of tranquility and comfort in my heart. That's something I believe I need more in life. I realized one day on the beach that small things in life are the most valuable. Many people run through their days, failing to notice the minor pleasures that life provides, such as sunsets. Every generation is fascinated by the limitless expanse of sky that sparks childlike enthusiasm. It doesn't matter if you're an adult or child, sunsets provide a sense of calm and serenity to everyone. You're not going to have another opportunity to live the day over again, so why waste time? Enjoy every sunset. Anyway, yeah, I can really resonate with the idea that I think a sunset's magical for all ages. I do like that.
Yeah, great. So this is a. I'll just point out right off the bat. I think really interesting color here. I'm kind of a sucker for this like blue orange sunset vibe thing. I literally have things in my wardrobe I have chosen because they're these colors. This is my favorite color combination.
Of this one, I just
Oh
pulled
yeah,
up this color and just the mood that's happening here. It's just those colors are gorgeous.
yeah. It's great too because there's a very filmy vibe to this one too. Look at how the shadow is sharp and or the silhouette is sharp and a little angled. I like that, and then the back is kind of soft and muted in terms of
Yeah,
like it's sharp. I like that a lot.
me too. It has a dreamy type of feeling too, or nostalgic type of feeling that film
Uh,
provides.
the other one that I think is really good in the same way as the last sunset, which is the one with the person balancing on one foot on the bottom row. Like I love the tonality of this one.
Yeah, it's beautiful image, beautiful composition, and everything. I love the.
Look at the reflection on the water, the color.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Really beautiful. I'd love to replicate some of these in sunsets. These are really nice.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's great because one of the things that's nice. Look at that sunset. That is that's like it's not one of those like crazy burner sunsets. It's more like, well, first of all, this is blue hour, right? The sun's already gone down, but I really like it feels so subtle, and I love the gradients. Big fan.
Yeah, I don't think every sunset has to be like an epic sunset to make a beautiful nostalgic photograph. Sometimes it's just the more seen sunsets that we see on a
Yeah.
daily basis that can create that.
So if we're gonna get a critical here, I think that this is like Euphoria, the one with the kid facing forward, the super
Yeah,
wide angle. Like I think that's a
like
great photo. Um, there's another one very similar to it called In the Moment, and I
yeah,
think that
which
you
is
should. I don't think you should
yeah,
have both of these in the collection. I
yeah,
would.
and I think the other one is a bit stronger than this
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Euphoria is stronger for sure.
So I would probably draw yeah that one, and it's interesting he priced In the Moment higher, but and this is just our two opinions, but um, we prefer the one that's cheaper, not because it's cheaper, but because we think the image is stronger.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I think so. You see these two little pieces of the wave here that his owner have created. They sort of mimic what's happening up here in the sky, and then you have these. It's almost like they're arrows which lead into the center, which is the sun and him, the wave behind him, his expression, his hands. I think there's a lot of beautiful things going on there. Not to say that there's not beautiful things going on for in the moment, but I'm not as crazy as about his expression here. I'm not as crazy as about the beauty within the water flow here, and so I don't think that it's as strong because of those reasons.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So I was going to say, look, in terms of what we're looking for, let's look at descriptions, because that
okay.
was one of the questions was the descriptions and the titles.
So
How do we feel?
I'll read this one. So I was watching the sunset with my friends when the sky began to glow with dusk colors, and I had the idea to do a silhouette portrait. So I sat down with my phone facing up the sky to capture the sky's shades as well. Is this a self-portrait? Is that what I'm saying? If it's a self-portrait, maybe it's really beautiful. That's a good description. Artist name, sunset. I like to put spaces between this stuff, but I mean, it's up to you.
Yeah, you can do like
Sunset.
a shift return to get them to
Yeah, I just press
line up a little better.
shift enter, or I guess
Oh
just
yeah,
shift turn on an
shift,
Apple
shift.
maybe.
Yeah,
Um, but I do that. No, descriptions have like all the information. Um, they look good, so they all have that. There's a few ones that are kind of similar, I guess. I don't know if so like alone but happy, nowhere, except it looks like it's flipped upside down. Sunsets are a state of mind. Uh, Even Twilight, not as much, but Sunset's a state of mind. I think it's the one for me. That was the strongest. Like I just the
yeah, it's cool.
stance. The stance is really beautiful. It almost has like an alien feel. The and just the detail in these wetlands, these water. It's really gorgeous. Um, I mean, Horizon's a little high on this side. If you look at your horizons, I mean, I don't know if that's intentional. It might be better with it not even. I tend to even my horizons and take a look and see if it looks better, but it might work there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good
Twilight
one.
here. hmm
Yeah,
I think Twilight's beautiful. It might be a little dark. I don't know if it's a little bit dark of a photograph. Um,
I like it. I think it's great like it is.
but I think it's a really beautiful one. And so we have a lot of shots that have this similar like far away silhouette of someone in the distance. The question like, is a collector going to want to purchase this if like this has already been purchased and it's very similar, or if like this is very similar. Like, so
For me, I'll just say this. You mentioned Alone but Happy and Nowhere. It's basically the same photo just flipped upside down. And I think
that's
Nowhere is
yeah,
a way more powerful image.
it is, and that's the one that's sold. So it's like,
Color, the way the lines work, the the way that the reflection really does hold up and give you all the information you need, it works.
yeah,
The other stuff, the the artists asked, "Do you think I should have more photos?" I would say no.
yeah,
um, and then just overall, like they're a little bit generic questions, and that's okay. It's just we're talking about the collection. I think it works. There's some color that works well here to bind them all together. Like we've said, there's a couple redundant photos here that might not serve the collection as well as others. But overall, I think it's pretty good. I like the color palette. You're speaking my language.
one of my favorite is the cheapest, 0.08.
Yeah, there you go.
Small Joys. Oh, this is another one that he flipped upside down. Interesting. I don't know if it's as good with this many people as it is when it's flipped with just a single or maybe a double. portrait.
It's a little bit. You ever? Sometimes you see things and it just makes you want to flip it over. Like this one just
Yeah,
feels like it feel like I don't like the tension. I just want to flip.
yeah, yeah. I feel the same way. So like, as far as calling goes, like I'd probably call out Alone but Happy because I think it's a better version. I'd probably call out Small Joys. We haven't really talked about Overjoyed, and maybe it's because it's not really my favorite image too. It feels the horizon is just like so. Um, the horizon bothers me a bit. There's just he just
Yeah,
it feels very dark. I don't know if it's just like the over processing or something.
it looks like it's probably from the same session as Euphoria,
Yeah,
and
and so
for that very reason, I would pull it. I just want Euphoria to be the only one of that kid playing in the waves.
me too. So I would, I'd lose overjoyed in the moment, alone but happy, and small joys, and I think you have a solid collection that's priced really well and that should eventually sell out.
Yeah, I
Right.
like it.
So I'm gonna favorite it in that order. So
Yeah,
so that you can see.
I think if I had to pick the ones that are my favorites here, Sunset State of Mind is really really good, uh, and I would say lean into that. Lean into like the Last Sunset, Twilight. Like I really like those a lot.
So, yep, beautiful collection. Doesn't have any
You
other
ready?
questions.
I think that was all the questions.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So
So the
like
next one is Passengers. Farewell to Bangkok's Huan Long Phong Railway Station. Huan Long Phong? Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Who knows?
sure. I mean, why don't you want to read the artist statement since you
Sure.
already
Sure.
tried to pronounce that one?
Okay. Hualong Phong is one of the most carefully maintained buildings in Bangkok. A neat, cool structure with the shape and ionic columns of a memorial gym at a wealthy American college. It was put up in 1916 by the Western-oriented King Rama V. The station is orderly and uncluttered, and like the railway, it is run efficiently by men in khaki uniforms who are as fastidious as scoutmasters competing for good conduct badges. Paul Thoreau, The Great Railway Bazaar. Sadly, after over 100 years of service to locals and tourists, Huanlongfeng is slated for closure in late 2021, replaced by a state-of-the-art but out-of-town facility at Bang Sue. Time then for me to look back on over 6 years of photography at this legendary station, a mecca for Thai travelers, foreign visitors, and photographers alike. A grand historic portal for rail adventures, as Mark Smith, also known as the man in seat 61, so wonderfully put it. That is a really, really well written, nice statement for the collection. I like it. When we pulled this one up, I immediately was like, "Yeah, Mike, I'm in on this one," and he agreed as well.
Yeah, Tim
This
Russell's great.
this is such a great. It's such a great collection that has very. It's so clearly about this railway station, about the trains, about the people who ride them. Everything about this works for me in terms of the theme, this thematic sort of vibe. I love it
This shot.
because there's stuff that's happening here that's just a little weird. Like that one's cool because yeah, somebody's just kind of chilling and sleeping, and the train's behind them. But one of the things that's a little weird, and I will just say this, is that's a really good photo. The one right next to it in my grid is also monks sitting on the same bench or a similar bench with a train behind them.
So I'm looking at it from oldest. I'm trying to give people the
Oh yeah,
respect of looking at it from oldest since like it starts at 1, 2, 3, and maybe this is the way that they wanted the collection to be looked at. So,
yeah, makes sense. Let me do that too.
okay. But still, I'd like to hear your point on what's another
So,
one that
well, first of all, we've got a lot of pictures of monks, right? Which can be cool. Um, it's almost like it almost could. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. like on the one hand, I'm like, there's too many monk pictures, but then at the same time, they're doing such interesting things. And I don't know this area. Maybe there's a lot of monks.
Yeah, I think there are. I think was that mentioned in the artist statement that I think a lot of monks do travel. There's so Sally, I don't know. I think it was part of the artist statement that there are monks. Is Tim here? Can he hop on? Can we unmute Tim Russell? Love to hear from him. He's a great speaker.
I don't think he's in here.
Yeah, I don't see him.
All right, well that's fine. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
okay.
if you looking at the collection as a whole, I felt a little bit the same way. Like, is this a collection about monks or is it about this train station? And you know, is it the idea that monks are very interesting to photograph that he has so many of them, or is that I'm thinking myself that that there's probably a lot of monks that frequent this train station, to be quite honest. And so
You see that the there's one that's one of the ones that's sold is the last one, Monk 12 Badass.
yeah.
I love it. The idea of like a monk chilling with a beanie and sunglasses on.
Yeah, that's a badass. That's funny. He's an interesting character.
Oh, and go look at the collection. It says my favorite shot in this collection for obvious reasons.
Where am I looking at?
Oh, look at the collection. Look at the description of that one of the badass.
Oh, it's his favorite shot. My favorite shot in the Kavabik. Never better. A guy basically looks cool as fuck and everything. His hat, the glasses, his expression. Interesting. The way the colors complement.
This is great.
It is a great shot. Yeah,
so
it's a great shot.
I will say this, that we really liked this collection right off the bat. It was one of the first ones we picked. Tim, and I know this one's already sold, so you can't change it, but it is missing the some of the information from the description, and I think that's kind of true across the collection.
I think so too. Let's just pick a random one that's not sold. And so yeah, so we have information about what's happening in digital JPEG 2040. It comes with mounted print. We have no information about whether or not it's a 1-on-1 or anything like that. And we decided to review the collection anyway, just because we really enjoyed this documentary collection, especially when someone comes up with so many photographs from a specific location. It kind of reminds me of my Staten Island Ferry series.
Yeah.
I rode the ferry for like 4 months and.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
also anybody who's been around the NFT world knows about Christopher Shin's By Way of Water, right?
Yeah, that's a ferry series, and it's
Similar.
Yeah, similar. I don't know that it's similar to my ferry series because I feel like mine is more about people and his is more about a mood on the ferry. It's very, very different, but it's similar to the idea that that obsessive collections in a sense where the photographers go back over and over and over and over, and they people watch within the same space and they create within the same spaces. Something that does really well within the NFT world. And I have not released that series, and that's not a series that I'm going to release until I really feel like I want to release it. And that might be the one that's released on Sloika, since that's the one they accepted me for months ago. I just didn't think I was ready to drop it on there because I wanted to build community before I did that. But yeah, love the photographs from and not everybody could do this, but Tim Russell can photograph up close portraits of people that are really beautiful and compelling, and he can also do it from a distance. So that's
a really good mix for sure.
So that's something that's really admirable to me, and like it does really well within like a documentary series because you like to see that variety within a documentary series.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, children. I'd continue this series though, and I'd probably work more just on photographing more people outside of like the monk community and men. I want to see more women. I want to see more women within the subway here because I don't really see any. I see except this whole
yeah, exactly.
I see this lost in the crowd one, and so, and I'd be honest with you, it's not the strongest image in the collection, and so maybe the photographers just has more drawn to photographing men, but I'd love to see the variety here. I mean, even the subject here is a man, but you have this woman in the background, she's got the phone, so there's a lot of women that frequent this subway station, and would love to see a perspective on them within the subway station as well. Um, so this is
Yeah.
beautiful. This is just a beautiful shot. They have all their belongings, the colors, the wood bench, the orange of their attire, and the purple goes so well in the background with it. Really beautiful colors, and whatever camera he's using as well. But
Yeah, these are great. These are great. I think, and I was going to pick at like one of my favorites is a haircut envy.
is it haircut? Is it this one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like it's so interesting. Oh, and the dogs are barking at the door of my house.
It's okay.
I'm just going to mute myself for a second. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that's fine. I could talk about this one. This is really interesting because it's I mean, clearly it's not a barber shop, right? I mean, it's the train station, and I think he caught just some really beautiful expressions on these men. Like the gentleman here, he's just very calm, looking off to the side. It's just like he's at a barber shop and he's in the middle of the train station. This guy has sort of a smirk on him. I don't know if it's because he knows Tim is sort of up close to them making a photograph, and these women are cutting hair at the train station. It's really interesting that they're making their living there, like it's just a barbershop. And I saw a lot of stuff like that in Ecuador too, where it was like I'd be on the bus in Ecuador, like the public bus, and the public bus would literally stop so that people could come onto the bus with like coconuts and fruit and all this stuff, and they would just walk around the public bus and sell this stuff to people, and then the bus driver would just let them off. And it's so different from what you see in North America, because that would like never fly here, that you'd let like a vendor from the street that's like not licensed by the city to be able to sell, to be able to take their tax money, come onto a public bus and be able to do that. So I find that really interesting. I think it's a strong photograph, strong composition. I think Tim Russell does really well with just human beings in general, and allowing for them to feel comfortable within his presence. And I'd love to hear from Tim if he was here, and how he gets that level of comfort with them. And are you back, Dan?
I'm back. Yeah.
You tame your dogs.
I had, this is the most random thing. So I'm a commercial photographer, and I have a guy that I met at our local dog park, and he showed up and he was like, "I'm getting married. I want you to shoot my wedding." And I was to say, "I don't shoot weddings, but here's my card. Send me an email. I'll introduce you to a wedding photographer."
Wait, that's what just happened?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Crazy.
So you don't have dogs? Some guy with dogs showed up to your door?
No, I have two very large dogs. They were barking at the door.
Oh, I thought this guy came to your house with dogs. All right, that's funny.
He has a cool dog, but no, he didn't bring his dog. Anyway, sorry for the interruption.
Did Tim leave some questions there on the collection?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he did.
So Tim said, "What are your thoughts on why this collection hasn't sold as well as my others? Do the images have any resonance for people outside of Thailand, or who have never been to Bangkok or its railway station? And then if you were talking to me the day before this collection launched, what would you tell me to do differently?"
Okay, wow. I mean, I wouldn't know that it's Thailand, to be honest, if I wasn't told that it was Thailand, because it's a subway station, and I think that a lot of the people are actually monks. So monks take up a large portion of this actual photo series, and so like I said, I'd like to see some more diversity with like what women are doing with the subway, and there's a lot of children that he has too, that maybe some can see as Thai children. I'm not exactly the best at identifying that. I haven't been to Thailand.
So let me get here. Basically, I'll jump in here a little bit. My advice I feel like there's like we said, there's a lot of monk photos, and some of them are like it's interesting, but the fact that they're a monk is maybe and that they have this orange color on is maybe the only thing that's really interesting about the photo. Like a good one is number 8, train of thought. Like I just don't think that as much as it's kind of a pretty or a beautiful photo, I don't know that it adds anything to the collection, if that makes any sense.
I'm
I
trying
think
to
it's
find number
further down,
8 here.
further down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right there, below where you're at.
Yeah, I really enjoy this one.
I like the tonality, but I don't think it's not. Here's the thing: you're trying to tell a compelling story about the train station. There are already lots of pictures of monks with trains in them in this collection, and so I want to see more of what happens in this train station. That's why haircut envy is interesting to me. Like, why are there haircuts happening in the train station? Like that just seems weird to me, but it's kind of an interesting story.
Mhm.
But that said, there are like 3 different haircut photos in here,
Mhm.
um, and
There are,
so
or similar shots of a boy that's like, has the same expression, like this expression
yeah,
or this
like
expression here.
Tim is a really good photographer. That
Mhm.
much is clear. I think if I were going to back up and say, okay, if you're trying to have a collection that's telling a photojournalistic story about this place, if this were going into a magazine to tell the story about this place, I don't think it's deep enough to tell the story. And I think maybe that's kind of what maybe it's running into a little bit. You're relying on the photos being pretty, but they're not compelling enough stories about what's going on or why this place is important.
I don't think I could have said it any better than that, actually. I think that's really well said. And in that regard too, I mean, I could probably cut this collection down from like 21 to like between 12 and 15, because there's many of them that are very similar. Like, look how similar this is. Um, Monk 3, 1,000 yard stare, and then Monk 2, heavy traveler. I think
Yeah.
maybe heavy traveler is the.
I will say this, that between those two, I really
It's this
prefer,
one.
yeah, the tonality is so much better on that one. The other one, it's the white balance is off.
Yeah, this one would be the shot for me. And like, how many monk shots do we need to get that across, right?
Yeah.
So like maybe that one's good, and this one, and then maybe the 2 at the station here instead of the one guy. But you got a mix of a lot of things happening too, because there's a lot of these like close up shots too of like this gentleman playing this flute player, which I really like, because it's not just a head on portrait, but we're actually you can see like the lights above the top of the train station
Yep.
here, and the leading line angles of the train and everything like that. And this really tells a story to me about like someone that's working on his craft at the train station. And
Yeah.
same thing with the haircut shot. Too many haircut shots, but this is the one that stands out to me, the one we looked at.
Yep.
So a bit too many monk shots, a bit too many haircut shots. Um, the 2 kid shots are a bit similar to me. I think the one that's sold is clearly the better shot, because you were able to show dimension within this, and his expression I think is better.
Yep.
And yeah, so
Actually, they both sold.
okay, they both sold. Yeah, and
So,
this one sold for almost 3 times the amount. Sure, they did both sell. I do see that.
so ultimately, like kind of what I said is, I want it to be. This is one of those things, is that if you want it to be a great storytelling documentary collection, it should be. I want to see more story, and I feel like there are not enough storylines, and there's duplicates. So that'd be my feedback.
Yeah, I agree with the feedback. I think Tim's an excellent photographer. I think he just needs to revisit the curation of this, and maybe even revisit the train station with his
Yeah.
camera.
And my guess is he probably has a lot more photos from here. So I know how this kind of photography goes.
Well, you know what? Where is this photo? I'll be on the banner. Where's this
Uh-huh.
photo? And these are beautiful. Like I
Yeah.
can't even see it. Like this looks like a conductor and he's flagging, and this looks like this gentleman here in a uniform who works there. And he talked about these guys in the artist statement, but they're not
Yep.
in the series.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. We don't have any
So,
officials.
so that's definitely that would be my most critical of the series is that like where is this photo and where is this photo
It's not the
and
first
why.
time we've said that too. We've had other collections where we've said, "Wait a second, your best photo is up in your banner. Where is it?"
Yeah, and so I mean, like, look at this train with the pink and the olive
And
and the
the
maroon and
tie. Look at the language, the printing on the side of the train too. That's
yeah.
cool.
Now this tells me more about Thailand's train station too, and I want to see the conductor shot too. How about shots
Oh,
in? What about shots inside the train? I haven't seen
Mike,
any shots inside a train.
Mike, resize your window and look at the banner. Can you drag your window so it's smaller, and watch how they because you get to see the whole picture of those
Oh, I
side.
see. I see what you mean. Like, oh, now I'm seeing a mouth here. So make it smaller, like
Make it
that.
narrow. Make it narrower.
Oh, these shots are so good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Right. Those need to be in the collection.
Those 100% need to be in the collection, and I'd love to see pictures inside the train. And now we know that you have more photographs too. So I think that we've given him
Great.
so much good feedback that
Let's move on.
that he's got a lot of work ahead here, and he's a phenomenal photographer. So like, come bring us something awesome and show it to us outside of the AMA, and let us take a look, please. Great job on your photographs. And just need some diversity in here and some duration, and definitely see if you got some more pictures of women too. That'd be great.
Cool. Let's move on.
Good. Sure. So, oops. The next series is Holly, the Holly Festival. This is by Satyam. The Kaleidoscope of Colors. And no one's bought yet. And
So
I
here's
think,
what's kind of cool, Mike. We've seen a lot of different kinds of festivals from India, and I've seen photos of these, of this kind of festival, the crazy powder festival of colors. It's great. What I just haven't seen a lot of photos of them in the NFT space, and so that's why it totally makes sense for us to dive in here. These are obviously great photos. Um, I'm admiring of anybody who's willing to subject their camera to this because I've seen what it does.
yeah, it's really difficult.
Yeah,
And you're inhaling this stuff the whole time too, right? Like, I mean, I don't know how good it is to inhale, but
yeah,
it definitely looks like something tough to shoot. But I would do it anyway because I love color and I love people.
yeah.
There's some really phenomenal shots in here, but I'll tell you this, that like I would rather this collection not be 9, and I'd rather it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd rather it be 6. And it's because there's some images here that are just quite similar. And between these two, Hail the Lord and Commencement, I just think that Hail the Lord, like, is the shot. Like,
Yep.
that's fantastic. It's like, he's taking on a leadership role right here, and everyone's like, yes, like it's like it's reminds me of Sparta, and so then there's this one here that is similar color, and while it's a great photograph, because we're gonna have a lot of great photographs here with this Holly Festival. It's still a great photograph. It still is. I love the red-blooded color here, right in the middle of all the yellow, and how it's kind of like shooting down on these guys that look like it's like arrows coming down on them with their posture. How it's just like their postures look like, and this guy looks like he's just a warrior. Of the two, though, I do prefer the vertical Hail the Lord
Yep.
image. Okay, so that's why I favorited that one instead of this one. There's two pink ones here that are very similar in pink, where this is the crown of colors. While I find it to be a beautiful photograph, I find all of them to be here. I don't know that it hits as strong, and this is my opinion, as people of colors here, where we have this subject to the left that also feels like he's in this sort of like leadership position, and just look at the paint splats on all of the people here.
Right, right.
It just
No,
and the
I
image,
totally.
yeah, the image is cut in half beautifully by this fog of pink, and the yellow is just all off to this right side of the photo, and it just bleeds into it. It's that's the shot for me when it comes to those two. So
Go click on
and then
Stealing a Glance, Mike.
what's that?
It's click on Stealing a Glance, the third one over on the top.
Well, that was my next one. Would be between Stealing a Glance and Human Crayons, in which I chose Stealing a Glance. This is my favorite shot in the series. I think that this is just so good because he's just it's just all red. It's all dark red, and then you just have this this skin toned, brightly lit face and eyes, like looking up, and it looks like he's holding a weapon. It looks like he's holding some type of sword in this image, and it feels very like samurai or something to me. And then you have which appears to like maybe be a woman right under it too, and they're stealing a glance as well, just right below with the beads around the head. And I just think that this stealing a glance is just similar to this shot, and
Right.
I think it's just stronger, even though I think this one's strong too. And maybe both of these could stay, but I think that a couple of these images need to go. I think there's two that we already mentioned, but like I do love this guy's expression on the left here. It just seems super sinister, and there's these
Yeah.
the yellow paint coming down, and I
When I
love
zoom
all.
in, when I
Yeah.
zoom in, Human Crayons is really awesome.
Yeah, so maybe Human Crayons has to stay as well. I think it's a really great shot. So, rebellious red, another great one. Loved how you singled out the person here and the movement. This feels like a painting. This one,
Yep.
the depth of field, like the blurred out depth of field background, combined with the fact that it has this painterly look, is like a depth of field that I haven't seen before. It's a very interesting take. And so, yeah, I think this is a really solid series. Lots of beautiful stuff here. Another one where just the colors, and you have that central subject with these necklaces, and just what he's wearing. It's all so beautiful. And I know that Satyam is right now photographing the new Holi Festival. So maybe you could replace Commencement, and maybe you could replace the Crown of Colors with two new ones that aren't as similar to some of the other colors that you have here.
Yeah, these are. I think they're really beautiful. The questions that he had were: is the collection powerful enough? What should be the changes done? Is it priced right? I think price is fine. I think that it's a really powerful group of photos. Like we've given you some feedback on which ones we think are a little bit maybe out of place, maybe not quite as powerful. And then the other question was, how could I market the collection?
Cool.
And I really think that marketing is one of those things that it's like price. People ask about marketing. The reality is, just like if you're going to sell anything to anybody, you just have to work out like, okay, how do I get this in front of the right people? And I don't know who the right collector is, but I do know that the vast majority of NFTs are being sold on Twitter right now. Like that's showing your work to people on Twitter is kind of how this works. There are some exceptions, like this particular AMA, like people doing spaces or that sort of thing. There's some exceptions where collectors are seeing work, but in general, showing your work on Twitter is the way that this works.
I agree.
And so I'll back up a little bit and say maybe this is a piece of advice, is that you need to think about the idea of how do you show it in a way that's not that doesn't seem spammy, that doesn't seem like you're showing way too much all the time, but show it an individual image and talk about why it's important to you. Tell the story of that image and do that for all of them, like one each day or one every couple days. Like that's the kind of thing.
That's a great suggestion. Is to like, I completely agree with that. Like post Hail the Lord today and just like talk about the image in a tweet, you know, and I'll retweet it, and I'm sure a ton of people will retweet it, but like get people interested in the story behind like stealing a glance. You know, I completely agree with what Dan just said. I think that that's a phenomenal way of marketing. And so I do that with other people's images a lot, where I'll just take their image and I'll talk about it, and then people will retweet it. And it's kind of like I'm marketing for them, but I do that because they've built a relationship with me, and that's just another way of marketing. So I do it for you if I like you. So it's like it's so and you know, patience is another thing too. I mean, I provide a lot of value, and I'm very active, and you know, still I have series that sit and you know have had 350 retweets with not even one sale in the collection on Foundation. So, and I sit and I'm like shrugging my shoulders, like, "Whoa, what's going on?" I think we all have our own battles in wondering, you know, what's going on and why it's not. And you know, sometimes things come in waves. Like sometimes it's just like I was complaining about Foundation the other day, and it's just like I remembered the last time this happened where I didn't have any activity in months on Foundation, and then one day I woke up and my emails were like, "You received a bid on this, and you received a bid on that." I'm like, "What?" And it's like sometimes the universe just works in a weird way, and it's like you just got to continue to focus on, you know, working on yourself, and also, you know, helping the community, and kind of let the universe catch up to your good deeds. It's patience is a big thing. I'm beginning to learn. It's tough.
Well, let me add something to that, Mike. I think one of the things that's a little weird is, you know, we're approaching about a year into this for people on, you know, the NFT market kind of took off just a little over a year ago. And before that, all of us photographers, we would share our work on different social media places, you know, like, you know, Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. And the idea was we were sharing the work because we wanted people to see it. Selling prints or licensing the images was like a completely separate thing that wasn't really involved with the specific idea of marketing. You know, we would sell them and that would be cool, but it wasn't our primary focus. I think one of the things that is really good to remember is that just because there's a market, just because there's people buying these things, doesn't mean that you shouldn't still be doing the things to share your work, even if they're not going to sell, you know, or even if it's going to take longer for them to sell. This whole idea that you can share your work and it's all going to sell out immediately, like that's the exception, not the rule. And I think it's healthy for us to back up a little bit and say, okay, if nobody were going to buy this, how would you share it? What are you hoping to communicate? You know, if that was your goal was to communicate powerful images and not just sell them to somebody, how would you communicate that? What would you be sharing?
You know what's interesting? And I'm looking through this, and it's like you can see that like 12 days ago he listed at 0.27, and then 3 days later he's like, "Oh, it's not selling. I got to lower the price, 0.25." Then on the same day he lowered it to 0.2. Then 2 days ago he lowered it to 0.19. And so I don't know if that's the strategy.
I think that's an error in strategy, and I'll tell you why. It's because we have said this very clearly. For most collectors, there is no difference between most of those prices. You either want the work or you don't. Like paying 0.15 or paying 0.25 is not that different. Maybe it is to some collectors, but I just don't think that that's not the reason your art's not selling. The reason your art isn't selling is because the right people haven't seen it yet. And more importantly, please hear what I just said. If nobody were going to buy it, how would you communicate? If you think about that, you might realize that that kind of communication, that kind of sharing of the work is what collectors are actually looking for. It's what will actually create the relationships and the conversations to have this work resonate with people.
Yeah, and so like the time that you wasted to change all these prices, maybe you could have showcased a couple of different pieces and told like a heavy story around that piece, and that could have been like the deciding factor and the sale versus lowering the price. Because I think this is, I mean, I think this is the best shot in the series, and now it's at a lower price than you know, some of the ones that I don't actually think are as strong. But there's, you know, that's, I think this is another really great one as well. So
Yeah.
and you know, I don't know if he did the same with his activity here. Yeah, started at 0.3, moved to 0.2, and so.
And maybe that's that thing we were talking about earlier. Back up and think about this a little before you price, before you release. Do all your research, because you obviously aren't comfortable with the price that you set it at. You're doubting yourself, and that's not we all do that. We all do little adjustments, but I would say spend a few more days thinking about your pricing before you launch, and maybe ask questions and do some research, so you're not having to like second guess yourself, because there's nothing worse than second guessing yourself all the time. And it's hard enough to be not selling work to then have to say, oh, did I get the pricing wrong?
Mm-hmm. Another thing to think about is like how much effort went into like displaying some of these photos and talking about some of these photos before the drop, like leading up to it, or building some anticipation and hype, or reaching out to collectors that have previously bought from you, and saying, you know, I'm whitelisting you or something like that. I mean, that's something that I did with my last drop, was like, you know, I teased with photos, you know, for a couple of weeks, and then, you know, reached out to the collectors who had already bought and said, you know, you'd have per first pick if you want to look at 20 that will be released. And so 5 people winded up buying. So there's strategy in which you can do this, and there's a lot of things to think about. You know, when I joined the Web3 and this space, like I had no experience in marketing at all, and I didn't even really know what marketing was. I thought it was just kind of like shoving my work down people's face and asking for and shilling. And then I just like studying the space over time, I just figured out just different ways of doing things by, you know, watching other people that were successful, or just, you know, being kind to people and just being active. So, you know, that's all I really have for. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. So the next collection is lines and people, and
so this is similar to one we did last week, right? Similar theme, different photos, but similar theme.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'll let you take the lead on this one, since we talked about it last night. And you clearly picked 2 out in here that you don't think belong, and I was in, you know, perfect agreement with you.
There's a bond between. Okay, I'm going to read the collection statement. There's a bond between lines and people. People can draw their own lines. This collection is a project where I try to explain the bonds between lines and people. The photographs were taken in various cities of Turkey between 2010 and 2022. The photographs were deemed worthy of many national and international awards. This collection consists of 12 high-resolution JPEG images. All photos are 1-of-1 print. Photographer Ali Mermertas. Okay, so first of all, you said there's 12 images, but the collection says there's only 11. So we got to fix that. But before we do any of that, I think it's good to think about, you've given us a clear idea of lines, and you've talked about that this is about how people can draw lines. It's the intersection between it's the bonds between lines and people. So for me, what I'm looking for in this is there needs to be a clear person or people and clear lines. I think that for that reason, there are two photos here that just probably really don't belong. They feel out of place because they don't take advantage of any of this geometric stuff. And you're right, it's that one, Basket Maker and Mulberry Drying, which is basically a very similar looking photo, but just turned sideways. And I know that it's different stuff, but they basically look like very, very similar photos. I don't think those belong.
Not only that, these start to begin to feel like documentary photography, right, where the other ones start to feel like abstract views of people operating within geometry, which I really like.
Yep, exactly. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, I love documentary work too, and I think this is a great shot. It just doesn't make sense in a series like this one, where we're clearly talking about geometry and people operating within large scale geometry, not up close. I think scale is a big one in this series, and I love the scale. I love this. Maybe one of my favorite ones. These tea workers. This is people in lines to me, where we're really looking at scale and saying, wow, and just really beautiful to see those. Right. And those two don't fit. And I think you said something about fish ponds.
Fish ponds don't work for me either. And there's two reasons why. First of all, the scale is wrong. We're looking at a boat, not a person. I know there's a person on there if I zoom in close enough, but it doesn't feel right to me. Also, the details on the boat, they just don't. That doesn't hold up. And there's one other thing that bothers me a little bit about this one. I think the fact that it's all blown out and the highlights are that reflection of the clouds in the bottom just kind of makes it muddy.
Yep, it's just not the strongest image within series either.
That could be a cool. I've seen other pictures of these fish ponds from top down, and I think it's fine. I just don't think it works in this collection, and I think it probably could be a little better. But here's
this one works.
Side by side. Yeah, that's great. The yellow helmet makes it, right. The yellow helmet brings out all of the yellow tones throughout the whole image, and look at how it's so warm on the one side and how it's so cool on the other side. Like, that's just fantastic.
I love it around these rings. This blue.
Yeah.
It's like this blue. It looks like blue paint almost. Yeah, I think it is blue paint, but I love that how it's like split in half, and blue and yellow are really great color relationships too. And the mallet, everything. Yeah, I love that shot. So
one of my favorites is Winter, the white one with the. I don't know what's happening here. It's really.
Cool. Yeah. I favorited that too. It looks like the guy is shoveling marshmallows. That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. I'm guessing it's probably hay bales or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's going to clean his products in a factory.
Yeah, I think probably it's a lot of products that are shaped like squares, and so the snow is just laying over them. And it looks like marshmallows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just great. And there's some in here that are real winners. The farm workers is another one where they're walking through the lines and you can see their long shadows.
I favorited this because I thought it was a brick wall until I opened it up. It looks like a brick wall on someone's house. And then I'm looking at it and I'm like, whoa. And the shadows are really similar to each other. They look like the same person's shadow.
Look at Brick Worker as well. The one with the neon yellow.
Yeah. I looked at this twice already. I like this one a lot. I love the little small space of reflection and the scale that's not a reflection.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that's what makes this powerful is the scale and the perspective. And not just this photo, but the whole collection.
And the price. The price is too.
This is a good price. I like that they are just all priced the same, basically. I mean, there's a few that are 0.1, there's 0.11, 0.12. Basically, they're all very similar prices. I think it's a strong collection. I would just remove those few because they don't fit as well. But yeah, in terms of what the feedback they were looking for, I have more photos, but I uploaded 12 isn't enough. I think it's enough. I think it's enough, except I think it maybe is a few too many.
Yeah, I keep going back into this T work because I love the shot.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one.
Yeah. What was the other
Um,
question?
I think that's pretty much it. The what is missing? What is missing? Nothing. Nothing missing.
No, nothing missing.
I think I will say this. It's just a good example of you are really attempting to make really compelling work, and it works. It's great. So take that as that I think is maybe the best compliment we can give, is that you clearly have made stuff. You have a vision for this, and you're doing a great job with it.
Yeah,
I can see that you
focus on scale.
I can see that you know exactly what you're doing, and I bet you included those basket and sorting ones because you thought you needed 12. And I think that you probably can pull those out because I think I would guess that you probably know they don't fit as well. That's my gut.
Yeah, and 10 is a great sound. So,
Yeah. Okay.
or I mean, I don't fish ponds in basketball. I don't know.
Yeah, the
Definitely fish ponds I
basketball
remember.
the basketball one is a little too obvious, and it's I don't know. It doesn't work quite as well for me.
Yep, I think if we remove this one, in the two baskets, then we have something that really is cohesive to scale and geometry. And I think that's where you nailed it. So we can move on to the next question, I think.
Also, I'll just say that the descriptions are solid. You've got
Mhm.
license, you've got all the information you need there. Yeah, everything looks good.
All right, great. There's only two more. Right? So, I think you say, is it Gahan? Again, I guess it's Gahan. If not, it's Gahan. Myths, Mysteries, and Mirrorness. It's a Hindu festival celebrated mostly in the Indian state of West Bengal. Festival of the village folk and associated with deities such as Shiva, Neel, and Dharmaraj. Um, People of any gender can participate. Main theme of this festival is deriving satisfaction through non-sexual pain, devotion, and sacrifice. And so Dan mentioned about this, that we should pick this one because we were talking the other day about like seeing more of like behind the scene type things. Such, and I think it
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a lot of those elements. And
I can dive in a little bit on that.
sure.
In our previous, this has been one of the interesting things. Elephant in the room. There are a lot of Indian folks in MetaJungle, which is cool. I love seeing that. Also, we see it a lot of festival photo collections. And one of the things that we haven't seen, we see a lot of photos of the actual activity happening in the festival. You know, somebody, you know, like the one we just saw with the paint. We see the paint being thrown and the powder being thrown, and then we see other ones where there's somebody doing some kind of ritualistic thing. And what I've always found is maybe more interesting is to look at what is happening kind of behind the scenes. What does it look like if you're not staring at the person who's performing or the person who's the center of attention? This is great because there's so many. This is like from the sidelines, and
Yeah,
I find it almost. I don't know if it's more interesting, but it is interesting in a different way.
this
That
ball of fire shot is sick. I love this though.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, fire just looks wild, and I love how he took it from behind him and not the typical from the front. It gives a
Yeah.
really good perspective there, and just blows up the whole middle of the frame, and so good. I like that shot very much.
There's one that's a little bit. I'll point out. Just there's childhood reflected, and the one right next to it, the innocence. These are the same two girls,
Yeah.
but from a different.
Well, oh wait, that's okay. Oh yeah, I think childhood reflective for me is the shot. maybe for you it's the other, but I think their interaction here um, is something for me. Whereas I don't know which one you enjoy more. Uh,
I think I like the reflected one as well.
yeah, I think I like the idea.
Look at the description. The artist says my favorite photograph from the collection, mainly
Oh,
because
is
the smiles, the happiness are between the two kids.
yeah, that's the one I favorited. Was the childhood reflected? So like the three strongest for me was like childhood reflected, ball of fire, and then bless you little kid. I really enjoyed the shot. It looks like there's like almost blood on her foot or something, and they're performing something. I don't know, some type of like ritual of healing or something, or pulling something out of him. And I thought this shot was really strong. I think the composition's really good.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And I
there,
think Sammy bought some of these. He was just talking here before. Maybe he's still here. He bought this one, Happiness Within.
Sammy should be still. He was just commenting in the in the chat.
Yeah, he's probably still here.
Sammy, you still here? Do you want to tell us why you chose these?
I'm sorry, I had him muted. I unmuted him. Go ahead, Sammy.
Okay. Hey, Sammy.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to quickly step in to give you a bit of background about that festival because it's a very unknown festival in Bengal, and it's basically a way of worshipping of Lord Shiva. That's the entire idea of this. But what happens as a result of this entire festival is you get to see a lot of mythological characters being replicated who come out to the streets in form of a procession. And the reason I picked this particular shot is because this mythological character is a very is a very what do I say, it's a very famous character in our mythology. But the way this person is representing it, especially with that white string being held in the hand, it's a religious string, and the way it's being picked up with Lord Kali just beside this person, it's a very interesting formation, to be honest, and that too happens in the middle of the street. And just look at the expression of the person, looks like absolutely in the moment of it, and I feel he had done a very good job because all the cars were flying beside. I know because I have shot this festival a couple of times as well. Because of the sheer difficulty of this particular shot and the moment in it, I thought, why not pick this up? It was quite a strong piece for me. And just wanted to talk about a few more pieces, like the one where the little kid is being stepped on by the person. Just, yeah, no, not this one. There's
I know the
another
other
one.
one. Yeah, I know which one it is. It's right here.
Yes, yes. So just wanted to give a brief about this because when we we do not post these images on any of the social platforms because a lot of people come back to us saying that this is not very human. Why should somebody step on a little kid like this? So just to clarify, they do not step on this kid. It's a form of a blessing of God, which is the reason why they're doing this. And in fact, after doing this, they actually lie down on the road as a part of submission to the deity. So this is considered to be pretty holy. And again, a moment like this is very rare. You won't find this in any part of the world. At least I haven't seen it. So that is the reason. Probably this is priced at such a high rate. That's 0.25. So when people get to see this and know the story behind it, they will not be, they will not feel anything bad about this image. So this is a
Oh, that's
very,
great.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this because not being from there and not being from the same religious background, it's really fascinating, but I love that you've just added that extra color to it.
Yeah, thanks for chiming in.
Yeah, this
So
is great work. Exactly what I was asking for last week. I want to see the behind the scenes. I want to see more of what's actually going on. This is perfect. Really well done. If anything, there's a couple here that aren't as strong, but man, maybe they are strong, and I just don't know what I'm looking at. So but you also have to think that if you're hoping to appeal to somebody outside of the religious tradition here, that man, telling these stories, like the collection or the description for the one with a blessing never seen before, it tells you the story in the description. So no worries.
what was the questions that the artist had?
Questions were, is the collection cohesive? Yes, it is. Should I remove some of the pieces? I think we've given a little bit of yes, maybe a couple. Could be, but
I mean, I can only personally weigh in my own opinion. So I think the two pieces that you've put at 0.05 seems as though you undervalue those compared to the other pieces. To be honest, I don't have a strong of connection to this guy taking a photo of what's happening outside of this.
right.
wasn't the biggest. The colors didn't really appeal to me. This shot here, while I'm more attracted by the right side of the frame and this gentleman and what he's wearing and stuff, I'd much rather have it been about him and a portrait of him than this whole like split in half by a wall. Like I mean by this like concrete, which really does nothing for me within the image. So like these are technical things for me, and so those two images, like I could probably lose. And
Yep.
this image just was a little strange to me, and I didn't. It's like I liked it, but it was also a little strange. I don't. What is the symbolism behind the like the tongue being out and stuff? I'm not sure. It's like you said, like I don't know how to approach some of the images because I don't know I don't know like the background, and maybe it's that I had to read this full description here. So
Yeah.
and there's a few of her, right? So
It's an interesting story, but I don't know that the photo is that interesting, if that makes sense.
yeah, I feel that way. And while I'm going to be technical here, while I understand what the image is about and stuff, like I mean, I probably would have gotten a little bit lower to the ground and made it like more about this, because her dress is just like an overwhelming part of this entire frame, and I don't know that it helps the image for me personally.
I agree.
And I know it's an important image, but like I'm just here to be honest, and I'm one opinion, and so like where I think your composition is just more intelligent here, and I think the composition is more intelligent here, and like the one I pointed out, like if it was the shot with the foot, for me it's this one, because like her dress doesn't take up like so much of the frame, and like everything, there's lines, there's her arm that leads to the subject, there's a foot that leads to the subject, this arm leads to the subject, his foot points to the subject. It's just like the subject is central, and we know it. The child's expression is beautiful and wonderful, and like it looks like there's this color on the foot that's like almost the color of blood. I don't know what that is, but
Yeah.
there's just some shots that are just stronger for me, and it's just because I think it's because the photographer just like technically nailed it in those, and so that I'd love to see other images that the photographer took from this event that can maybe be swapped out with some of the ones that I think are less strong.
Sounds good to me.
Yep, it's cool. I'm cool to move on to the last one.
Okay.
And
So yeah, let's do this one. This is the first one we selected together.
Black and white fine art flora, and I always admire people that can take photographs of flowers and make them amazing, because I think when people get into photography, a lot of people's first thing that they want to photograph is flowers, and they tend to be really awful. And I think that this photographer is really making some standout beautiful work, and they hold up at high resolution. This is gorgeous. This was my favorite one. And so I think it's a really cohesive and beautiful collection. I think the black and whites are really well executed. They're using a studio, and it looks like they're using a studio, and I don't know if they're using natural lighting or if they're using strobes. It doesn't matter to me, but they're very fine art, very pretty. Like even this white sits against white, like the choice to put white against white instead of black, and it still works beautifully and minimally. I'm really drawn to these. I really think they're beautiful. What do you think about these, Dan?
I think they're gorgeous. Yeah. I really like that the collection is varied. That it's not just they're not just all black with white on top. That some of them have these there's three of them that have kind of this on white
Like,
with gray with a
or
grayish
like
look.
this, or like
Yeah,
this added line here. This added
yeah.
circle, oval.
These are great. I think so. One of the things that's interesting, that's just a little different for everybody to kind of note, is that these, if you look at them, they were all minted. Like I'm looking at Hanging by the Thread, the one with the oval around it. These are all minted
Yeah.
back in January, or at least this one was. And
Mhm.
so the difference, one thing that's really important is that for anybody who is looking at all this stuff, these are minted. There's no changing these. You can't go add tags or details or description to them because they're already minted. So I'll say that because I think that a lot of the questions about adding things like licensing, that conversation started after these were already minted.
Yeah, this is beautiful. This one I have pulled up here. It's now you may now kiss the bride. That's wow.
Yeah. So in terms of like just we'll dig right in here. Is one line description caption enough for an individual image? I've tried to be more descriptive in the collection descriptions. So I
It's
think
a
that,
huge description.
yeah, I wonder if each of them,
Maybe they have different.
well, so the individual pieces have really short, like 1 or 2 liner descriptions.
Well, this one does. The last one had a big description. So,
Which one was,
tulips. The one that had a big description was the first one, Lone Soul. And so sometimes, no matter how many people one has
oh,
around, whether
hey,
you're home, yeah,
look at the description because this one was minted on March 15th and it has all of the stuff that we are asking for.
yeah, artist collection edition. That's the thing. Yeah, this is why foundation is a tough thing for me.
But man, it's beautiful. So yeah, do what you can going forward. I think this is the model we're looking for, Lone Soul. Obviously I think that makes more sense. It's going to be more fitting for the long term. Include it where you can. If you've got an old piece, don't burn it. Just it's what it is. And maybe communicate with if there's somebody who's going to buy it, communicate with them that you're willing to offer more license if you want to do that.
Yeah, I don't mind the description here, like Kala redefining delicacy, subtly giving it almost a dreamy vibe. I mean, that's enough for me. Like, I don't
Yeah.
need to know like how you made the photograph and like, what species that flower is within, and that was enough for me.
Yeah.
I think the prices are really good, especially for foundation, because they're going to take a lot of this.
Let me
0.25.
Well, I want to say something as well. We haven't reviewed a lot of foundation collections here, but the one thing about foundation that's cool is that they know what they're doing when it comes to showing the work and making it look good.
Yeah, presentation is really good. It's just your ability to change things, or collectors wanting to purchase from here, or the fact that like everything I have on there now uh, is place bid, and they just implemented something new called buy it now. So if I want to change all of my pieces to buy it now, I have to pay a gas fee for every single one that I want to change from bid to buy now. So like to me, it's like, do I waste more money uh, trying to get sales on foundation by going to buy now, or do I just let this sit and ride now because I spent enough money on gas here? It's
Yeah, that's one of the weird things about this. That's one of the weird things. I'm in the same boat. I didn't do a collection quite like this, but I have pieces on foundation, and it's such a tricky thing because I love the way they display. I like the provenance. I like the way it works. There's a lot of collectors who like to have an actual vault that's on foundation. So there's some collectors who are really into the way this works, but the underlying mechanics of foundation are just kind of difficult to wrestle with and not favorable, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
That being said, these are beautiful pieces. I would love to see these in front of the right collector because there are people who love work like this. Like I have one of my friends from the Twitter NFT space is Aaron Ferguson, and he has these really cool scans of flowers, and these kind of remind me of those in some ways. I know these are photos, but it's kind of similar, and I know that there's people who love this kind of work.
Yeah, I just keep going back to the rose. Just love this image so much. It's just so beautiful. Was there any other questions that the artist had?
Questions. Okay. Will missing license details hurt my sales? So,
Maybe.
maybe. I mean, this is the question: is not every collector is super concerned with that. I know that Alpha has said that he does care about it and wants it to be a thing that's included going forward, and he doesn't want to buy without it. I think that it's just good to know that having it there eliminates a question. It eliminates a thing that the collector has to worry about or think about.
Exactly.
If you have the ability to add it, you should. And it's in some ways what you're doing is you're getting rid of a what if.
Yeah, I mean this question was asked in Whale Shark in space today, and I know he said 400,000 NFTs. It's hard to believe, but I don't know, maybe he has. And he said, don't give us collectors anything more than collector or something like that. He's like, he didn't care for some reason. I give the editorial and commercial. Just don't, put my stuff on T-shirts and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay with it. Like, yeah, and whatever you do, credit me as the original person.
Sure.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it hurts to not have it there, but it's really helpful if you do. You're just eliminating one more reason for somebody to say, I don't know what the answer is, so maybe I won't buy it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if they really want it, they'll DM you and ask you about the license, and then you can tell them. But yeah, some of them probably want that written in the description as like a receipt that says it. But if you can't put it now, then you can't put it now, and that's just it. It's like there's some things that I can't do now because I've already done it, and it's part of being in the space early is learning, making mistakes, learning, fixing those mistakes, teaching other people, and the space will grow over time, and you'll become better over time. It's just the way it is. So if you can't do something, don't allow yourself not to sleep at night. Just for the future, add it and learn from it, and that's all.
Well, and something that so the other questions were: do I burn the image if changes were suggested? My answer is pretty emphatically no. I don't think that.
Money. So much money.
Well, and ultimately, like, why would you do that? Do you believe in the art? Because you certainly put together a beautiful collection. So I would say you only burn it if there's a really good reason, like you literally don't want it sold anymore. If there's little things missing, I don't think it's a huge deal. In terms of, and then they also asked, is the price too high? No, this is foundation work. We all expect it to be priced around that range. So I think pricing is fine. I think I wouldn't burn any of this stuff. In fact, the only reason I think that makes sense to burn something is if you're trying to move it to a different platform and you really don't want it to be where it's at, or if you decide you just don't want to sell it anymore, you're just done, you want it removed. And even then, you can always just delist it. You don't have to burn it necessarily.
Cool.
One more thing. Oh man, no, I'm brain fart. I totally forgot what I was gonna say. It's okay, I guess.
Well, I mean, I'll definitely say this. Like, please, guys that are listening, and let your friends know that are going to submit to the future AMAs. Please, if you can, and the individual images have not been sold, add the information that we've requested as far as your name as the artist, the name of the collection, and the edition. It's very important as a receipt for the collectors to know that you are telling us it's one of one. I want to know. I'm an artist and a collector. I consider myself a collector too. I don't think I would buy from someone now that doesn't have the information either in the properties or listed in the description. So we're making that a requirement. We've made it a requirement for this one, but we've let it slide because it's the first time we've implemented the Google document. But from here on out, we're going to be looking at that, and you're going to have a much better chance of getting selected if you have it, because so many people are just deciding not to put that information in there.
Right, right. And I one thing it might be good to just kind of ask about. I don't know if one of our founders is here and wants to talk about how we're going to be doing this. We have a big spreadsheet of a bunch of stuff that we looked at, and we chose the ones we chose. I don't know what the process is going to be like in terms of if you need to resubmit or if your old submission was good enough. So I don't know if Goon or MetaGirl or Bossman, if any of you would like to comment on that, if you have a way you want to do things, or if you'd like to hear from Mike and I about how we'd like to do it. I don't know. I'm just, if there's any guidance you already have.
We're looking at it. We're looking at it the most, me and you. So it's probably like, so yesterday, basically, Dan had the idea of like, let's mark off the ones on here that were picked for this week. And so we created a section on the Google Sheet and listed the ones that were picked. And then so maybe we can implement something where we make notations or comments in ones that we would consider for the future week. And then, the people that they don't have to resubmit or something like that. So yeah, I think for this first trial run that we did, I think it was really great to have the Google spreadsheet. I hope it was good for the people who submitted, and there's no more double and triple and quadruple submissions that we have to look at now. And we'll just work on the organization. And if the team here wants to chime in on any of that, or or whatnot, but we really appreciate you, Boone, for creating that. It came out really good. And look forward to the future submissions, because it was an easier process.
Yep.
And I do think that this submission process helped a lot easier to go through, because we're not having to go through duplicates and keep up with that. And also at the same time, it puts it into a really organized, easy to kind of figure out a system. And then also for the questions on the actual review day, I'm sure it makes that process a lot more streamlined. And so I know we had a number of submissions, way more than we would have been able to cover in this session. So we can consider some of those for next. And I have some ideas about what we can do as far as additional submissions that we can talk about and decide which is going to be the most effective for moving forward. So we can fine tune that, but I think we'll stick with this process of having a Google form to complete to submit for the AMA process.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, guys, we've had about 60 submissions, and the Google Sheet we had only released on that day. So you can imagine when we released a Google Sheet and there's multiple days involved, that we're going to have even a lot more submissions than that. So understand that a lot of people are submitting and applying for this, and so we're trying to pick the ones that we think we can help the most. But like we've kept saying over and over again, you could learn so much from what we're saying about other people's collections, and just today go and implement those changes into your own collection, and and make a lot of progress just by learning through others. Because Dan and I, just hosting this, are learning how to curate for our future projects just by helping other people. And we don't have to have someone talking about ours just because we're learning through talking about yours, and you can do the same. So appreciate everyone being here and submitting these, and hoping that the people that weren't selected were able to get a lot of knowledge out of this. And we really are passionate about doing this and helping you guys to being more collectible. And it's there's no better feeling than to see you guys actually take the feedback, go change your collection to the point where it's collectible, and then see your first sale or your second or your third, or even some of you now sell out. Like seeing Sammy sell out the other day by just coming out with a phenomenal collection, and him saying that he's learned a lot from the AMA as far as how he put that together, and that's a great feeling to have. So really appreciate all of that. MetaJungle, really appreciate the team. Dan, thank you so much for hosting this. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, AMA 13, I think, is complete. So if no one has anything else, then that's awesome. We can sign out.
Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks, Dan and Mike.
Thank you guys very much. It was great.
Yep, thank you.